Good morning. We'll call a meeting to order. We respectfully acknowledge that the Township of Algonquin Highlands is located on Treaty 20 Mississauga territory and in the traditional territory of the Mississauga and Chippewa Nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaties First Nations. We also acknowledge a historical shared presence of other Indigenous nations throughout the area. We recognize these original inhabitants as the stewards of its lands and waters since time immemorial. Could I have a mover and a seconder to adopt the agenda for today? Councillor Shortreed, Deputy Mayor Dayu.
Moved by Councillor Shortreed, second by Deputy Mayor Dayu. Be it resolved, the July 18th, 2024 regular meeting minute agenda be approved as circulated.
All in favor? That's carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof today? Deputy Mayor Dayu.
Thank you. Yes, I'm declaring a conflict of interest on item 17E, the council member appointment to the short-term rental appeals committee, as my family owns a tourist lodge in the township.
Thank you. Could I have a mover and a seconder to adopt the minutes of June the 20th? Councillors Richards and Shortreed.
By Councillor Richards, second by Councillor Shortreed. Be it resolved that the June 20th, 2024 regular and public meeting minutes be approved as circulated.
All in favor? That's carried. Could I now have a mover and a seconder to proceed into the public meeting? Councillor Barry, Councillor Shortreed.
By Councillor Barry, seconded by Councillor Shortreed. Be it resolved, council adjourns its regular meeting at 9:01 a.m. to proceed into public meeting for the zoning bylaw amendment application AHZBA 624, part of lot 5, concession 12, geographic township of McClintock, Hayden.
All in favor? That's carried. Could I have the planner come forward and review the application?
Morning, Mayor and Council.
Good morning.
So this property is currently zoned Hamlet residential and designated as part of the Oxtongue Lake Settlement area under the official plan. The property is approximately 3.13 acres in area with 173.7 meters of frontage on Highway 60. Surrounding uses are generally Hamlet residential, recreational, commercial, and rural. Bylaw complaint regarding shipping containers being located on the subject lands was received by staff in March of this year. The owner was contacted and was provided with options to bring the property into compliance with the bylaw. And they did submit an application for a site-specific zoning amendment shortly after. So the purpose and effect of this application is to rezone the subject lands from Hamlet residential to Hamlet residential with an exception. It is in order to recognize the existing outdoor storage and shipping containers on the subject lands. Notice of the rezoning was posted on the property, circulated to all property owners within 120 meters of the subject lands, and posted on the township's website, as well as to all prescribed agencies. No written objections have been received to date, and staff are recommending approval of the proposed zoning amendment.
Do members of council have any questions for Mr. O'Callaghan? Hearing none, does the applicant wish to speak to the application? Yep, you have to come forward so anyone listening can hear your comments.
I have nothing. Oh, thank you for seeing me. I have nothing to add, but I am available to answer any questions if there's anything that you should not be worried about.
Any questions for the applicant? Is there anyone in the audience or members of the public who wish to speak to the application, either for or against? So just a note that if anyone wishes to have a copy of the decision that's made, that they can submit a request in writing to the clerk. So I would ask for a mover and a seconder to return to the regular session. Councillors Richards and Short Reed. And the bylaw approving the application will be read under the bylaw portion of our meeting. So,
Thank you. Give your time.
thank you.
Moved by Counselor Richards, seconded by Counselor Short Read. Be it resolved, council adjourns the public meeting at 9:05 a.m. and regular meeting resume.
All in favor? That's carried. Next on the agenda are our delegations, and this morning that we have Mr. Greg Bishop to speak to some changes.
We just have Sean's report to.
Oh, my apologies. We have resolution to receive the report. So if I could have a mover and a seconder on that, Councillor Short Read, Deputy Mayor Dayu.
Moved by Counselor Short Read, seconded by Deputy Mayor Dayu. Be it resolved, council receives planning report PL 5424 regarding rezoning of lands located at part of Lot 5, Concession 12, Geographic Township of McClintock, Hayden, and council directs a bylaw be brought forward for consideration.
All in favor? That's carried. Now we have Mr. Greg Bishop to come forward with a change to a road alignment. Morning.
Good morning. Morning, Mary Danielson and members of council. And thanks for allowing me to come and speak to this. I think we're getting close to starting to meet conditions, and unfortunately for you, you may see a little more of me over the next 6 months here as we get this finished. Come to conclusion.
That's okay.
So of course, this is the Hawk Valley Road. That's the naming that you put on it, and that's great. So we can move that forward as well. I just wanted to start off with a little bit of a history, even over the last 2 years, as you know, and you graciously did give the 2-year extension instead of the 6 months. And the reason I wanted to start off by what's happened over the last 16 months is to give you an idea of some struggles people have when it comes to draft planning and subdivision. So Hydro One design January of 2000 and did I have my dates right? Yes, I did. January of 2023 is when they sent the first design out. I had a problem with the design, not from my perspective, from the township perspective, because they were showing poles on there that didn't exist. And so I said, well, as a surveyor, I can tell you where they are. I can go and actually locate them for you. And they said, no, that's their responsibility. They'll send a crew back out and we'll get the design updated. 11 months later, I get an email from Hydro One to ask whether we're still moving forward on the subdivision. So these are the types of things you hit with these conditions. Obviously in January of 24, I said, yeah, we're moving forward on the subdivision. So the revised plans I got, they just simply cut off the connection. It didn't show any poles. And therefore in la land between the subdivision and the road. So they just simply did not go back out. They just simply cut off the plan, and any connection across the township property was not shown at all. So that's what, in other words, I should have signed the first agreement, but anyways, that's life. We're sitting with, we got the contract finally on May 29th, 2024, which is approximately 14, 15 months after we re-engaged them. And it's ready to sign and return, but I just wanted to make sure the last cog in the wheel here is the moving of the road, because it is a $250,000 contract, and we would just want to make sure things are in place as far as access to the subdivision first. So next is that we have a new director of planning. Elizabeth Purcell is the new director of planning at the county. So I met with Elizabeth and Adam Klozowski and Sean down at the county office here a few weeks ago, just to make sure we're on the same page with the conditions. She comes from a world obviously where they, as she said, they have 90 of these planning files on the go between subdivisions, condos and that kind of stuff. So she has a great deal of experience in that area. And she had problems with some of the conditions. Again, this is what happens along the way. Sometimes I think we come out of that meeting that we're all on the same page, but what she wants to see is she wants the conditions to be rewritten to be have more clarity. So that's happening as we're speaking as well. She also wants an update of the draft plan of subdivision because it was signed by the Mears and not by Great Ship Surveying, so that's also taking place as well. But in that meeting, we were told to keep moving on our conditions and try to meet as many as we can. And hopefully there's not a discrepancy between how Sean and I are reading conditions and how she's reading conditions at the end of the day. And so that's where that is, and hopefully there's not any changes there, and we can just keep things going and don't have to ask for another extension because they've made a change of condition that's caused grief to the developer, and that's what happened last time, actually. 3 conditions were added literally an hour before that meeting in March, the last time around, and kind of threw a wrench into where to go that morning, as you know.
I recall that.
So anyways, one of the concerns she had, and I agree, she had a concern about the fact that the water supply was at building permit stage. With the river there, you can always get water. It's just, you know, if you drill a well, do you have a problem? It's in the subdivision agreement, but I did assure her that I've already hired Sean Vick. He's going to start drilling wells, and we don't want to put properties for sale unless we know the wells are there and that they've got supply and that kind of stuff. So irrelevant if it's whether it's in the subdivision agreement, we're drilling wells. So he's going to come out and drill 4 or 5. He has good experience in the area there, and he doesn't believe there's any supply problem at all. So we'll see how that transpires. As you know, Keith Thomas is a minor shareholder partner in this. He came on to build the roads and holding that bill. So, but he's also in the construction business and he wants to build houses as well. I've never been there. Over the years of the 40 years I've done development, I've gone down the road a couple of times and I'm just not a builder. And so we are in that discussion right now, and it looks as though we may proceed on erecting buildings and having sales not only on vacant lots, but buildings as well. So we get the project underway and kind of catch both sides of the market. You might catch somebody that wants that turnkey and walk in. People want to build their own, those kind of things. So Keith and I are going through the iterations of those, and we're meeting with some people in December to come, or sorry, in August to come up with some designs there. So the road request, of course. We have engaged Pinestone Engineering to review the base of the road. They're not going to come over until we just open it up right at the road itself where the new diversion's coming. And of course, we've got approval from the county, and Adam Thorne's looked at as well, that they're satisfied where that location is now. So we will finish the base of the road, and Pinestone will come over and look at the base of the road first, and then they will come back over so that they can actually write a certification letter once the B and the gravel get placed on the road and the width of the road, and all the types of things you need for approval from an engineer for a township road standard. So that's also that we've also engaged them as well. So the new location, the entrance requires you to take, and I think I wrote part 1 down, it's part 3, I think, in the plan. Has everybody seen the plan? Actually, do you have it? I've got copies if you need it, but if you're.
No, we've all got it attached to our agenda.
Okay, fair enough. So, as you can see, it's wider too. What we did was took in the hydro because hydro didn't come back out. My fear is if we had gone with 20-meter width, they come back out and all of a sudden they need an easement for widening. So we made sure that the road that's going to come into the deed for the road and the road itself, when it comes into your road system, includes the hydro line. So that's why you see such a wide section through there. We went 5 meters behind the pole line so that we could include the pole line that hydro ultimately is going to connect to. And so we did that right down to the bottom end to make sure everything got covered. So it looks kind of strange when you look at the width that's there, but that's because we not only took in where the road's going to go, we took in where the hydro is going there as well. So obviously there's going to be small amendments to the subdivision agreement as well. The amendments are the attachments. Obviously, this plan has to be attached to the subdivision agreement. It was signed by both. It's already been signed both by the developer, by my son. Obviously, he's the owner of the company, not me anymore. By my son and the township back a couple of years ago. We have to then now review that again, and different attachments will we'll go to the subdivision range. So they're minor tweaks. So once this plan gets on title, Sean and I can work together to make those changes, because that will also have to come back to council for that final review, and then we can get the subdivision agreement finalized and on title and get things moving on that front as well. So again, I don't know if you have any other questions, certainly here to answer the process that we've been through, but that's the request today, that hope that you will take title to that small section of road. And I'm suggesting that our lawyer draw up the deeds and send them to your lawyer for review and approval, and then we can get it on title. I know, John, you're pretty busy, so I always worry about.
How much time that'll take?
Yeah, well, yeah, I've worked with John forever, and of course, he was in front of me at the OLT many, many times while I was there for the 4 years, so saw him a lot, actually. And also represented some of my clients before I went back to the OLT, so I mean, I love John, I get along with him well, but sometimes timing isn't the priority. So we will draft the deeds if that's okay and send it down to John for review if that's acceptable to council.
Well, it's exciting to see this moving forward. You know, I know everything takes time, but it's really good to see it moving forward. Are there any pre-sales of the lot yet?
I didn't want a pre-sale because I wanted to make sure I had hydro. I wanted to make sure I had everything in place. Debating whether to go by maybe 1st of September. But I still want Sean to get in there and get about 4 wells drilled first. I really want to know that we're okay. I've never done it that way before. Usually once you get draft plan to subdivision, draft approval, you can start selling, but the history of Halbert County in general is it takes about 5 to 8 years to get a subdivision through. Well, then when do you start selling? And if you start selling, then you've got conditions, and then you got dates of closings and all that kind of stuff. I just decided, let's just get it bulletproof so that there's less things for a prospective purchaser to worry about bumping the sales, and hydro really was the key. A lot of times, we bump sales in the past because hydro's 6 months late or whatever. I have the contract. I know that once I've signed, they've got a timeline now. So I've got them in place, so I know it's coming, and we can get that side of the project done as well. So we're in pretty good shape. 1st of September probably. And by then, I think Keith and I will have settled on whether we're building as well. There's probably 3 or 4 people that have expressed interest, but they want to build their own. And that's okay too. But we're going to consider both fronts.
This isn't the first story I've heard about hydro and the delays associated with Hydro One, which is unfortunate, just for a variety of reasons, I'm sure. It's really innovative to hear that you're going to move ahead and put in the wells ahead of time. That's just one thing that the buyers don't have to worry about, and gives assurances to everybody that there's adequate water supply. So that's great. Do members of council have any questions for Mr. Bishop?
And just maybe one last point, Bell. When we were doing, I talked to Liz. Liz is our connection with Bell here locally, works for Bell, and
Not this Liz, another Liz.
there's another Liz.
Yeah.
And she's been in the area forever. She just asked if we had we've already buried all our piping, and she said, when you bury pipe, if you bury pipe for Bell, then of course now we're coming with this whole new process of high-speed internet, obviously. And that subdivision's on track to have that line run early 2025. So they'll actually have the cable, and we've already put the piping in, so that we'll actually have both Bell. As opposed to wireless, they can actually have the high-speed connection right to the various houses when they go. So that was a positive. The negative is how long this has dragged on. The positive is, oh, guess what? We're going to actually get Bell instead of off a tower. So that's worked out as well.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Any questions? Okay, could I have a mover and a seconder to receive the delegation and approve the request? Councilors Richards and Short-Reed.
Thank you for your time.
Moved by Councillor Richards, second by Councillor Short-Reed. Be it resolved, council receives a delegation from Greg Bishop regarding proposed subdivision number 40169101, and the council assume part 3 on preliminary plan of survey provided, described as part of lot 17, concession 9, geographic township of Stanhope, part of pin 391330733 LT, with an area of 0.117 hectares.
All in favor? That's carried. I have no presentations, so next is the consent agenda. Any comments on the consent agenda before we pass? Deputy Mayor Dayu?
Thanks. Yeah, if we could please pull, item 10F, which is the proposed shorewood allowance closing on Kawagama Lake. I have a single question for the planner.
Okay, so that would be moved to planning business. All right, could I have a mover and a seconder to approve the consent agenda with the exception of item 10F? Councilors Barry and Deputy Mayor Dayu.
Moved by Councillor Barry, seconded by Deputy Mayor Dayu. Be it resolved, items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine and enacted in one motion. Council members may request one or more items be removed from the consent agenda for separate discussion and or action, and that each and every matter of business contained in the consent agenda is recorded separately in the minutes of the meeting, and council has reviewed the consent agenda consisting of various staff reports containing proposed recommendations. And further, that council approve and adopt the July 18th, 2024 consent agenda, except planning item 10F, and the recommendations contained in those staff reports, and direct staff to proceed with all necessary administrative actions.
All in favor? That's carried. Next up is environmental business. Good morning, Ms. Murray.
Good morning, Mayor and Council.
So first is your, the committee update from May the 28th. I'm not sure if you want to speak to that or the committee chair wants to speak to that.
Thank Councilor Dyer.
Go ahead.
Sure, yeah, I'd be happy to. We had a good meeting. We're still focusing very much on organic waste and hazardous waste. I think that's probably going to be where, I'm sorry, you have a look of, no, all is fine? Okay.
Everything's fine.
Great. So we're still very much focused on hazardous waste and organic waste. An interesting initiative that we're suggesting is that in order to facilitate council's decision-making on the reduction of hazardous waste days based on good evidence, that we might implement a survey on those hazardous waste days to find out from people who are coming, what is the nature of their relationship with our hazardous waste days. When they don't come, is it because they have alternate strategies? Is it because they've accumulated things in their back garage for a longer period of time? Is it that they go to another location in the township, or I'm sorry, in the county for another hazardous waste days? Basically trying to understand a bit more about the common practices of hazardous waste, so that we can inform council in its next conversation about whether we should be reducing those days, which was the request of council a few months ago. So that I think is a really interesting plan, and council will see more on that. I wonder if perhaps Councillor Barry or Ms. Murray have anything to add, but that's the big takeaway from me.
And the direction that you're taking with respect to organic waste?
Yes, we're working on looking at encouraging composting at home, and all of the other ways that people can manage organic waste at home. That's very much the ethos moving ahead, rather than investigating further ways to bring them all together into a collective system. So it's really a bit of a comm strategy now that we're putting together. How can we reach out to the people who have been unconverted, and what would we say, and where would we put out those messages? Could they be right at the landfill? Could they be further on the website? We're rolling along with that strategy, and hope to see some results pretty soon.
Any additional comments on either of those items from yourself, Melissa?
If I may, through Mayor, just in regards to the survey, it was discussed that the survey would take place at events. So to survey people who are using the events, and that would be something that staff would take care of.
Any comments about that? I just wonder if it would be also helpful to use Bang the Table as well. Because that would reach out and get thoughts and ideas from folks who aren't attending hazardous waste days or maybe are attending other sites that you wouldn't necessarily find out about? Or would that survey be at all hazardous waste sites or just ours? If you were going to do it on site?
Through your mayor, the survey would be at the Algonquin Highlands events. So
Yeah.
it's,
So I can see it doing it in a dual way. But thoughts from council? Councillor Richards?
I think bang the table would be good, especially for those who are not using our hazardous waste days.
Just something for the committee to consider. Okay, if there's no other questions, could I have a mover and a seconder to receive the May 28th meeting minutes? Councillor Shortreed, Councillor Barry.
By Councillor Shortreed, second by Councillor Barry, be it resolved, council receives the May 28th, 2024 Environment and Stewardship Committee meeting minutes for information.
All in favor? That's carried. Next is your activity report.
thank you, Mayor. Report for June, just a note, thanks, I did attend the Solid Waste Association of North America Household Hazardous Waste Operations course, which was a one-day course, which was excellent. We use a contractor for our hazardous waste events, but I get lots of questions in regards to materials and handling them. So that was a nice opportunity to expand my knowledge there, as well to learn from other communities' experience and what other communities are doing as far as management of hazardous waste. So it was an excellent course, and I appreciate that opportunity. Had an opportunity to have the new site manager for the for Waste Connections in Bracebridge tour our Maple Lake site, and he was quite impressed. And it was a nice opportunity to give him sort of hands-on to see how our operations work, and that was a great meeting as well. Some exciting news, I think, maybe more for me than you. We finally got our new ECA for the McClintock Lagoon approved. It's been a very long process. The application was submitted in November of 2022, and we just had it approved on June 28th. So, and along with that, in the McClintock Lagoon news, we finally had some movement on the question of purchase of Crown land for development of dewatering trenches in that site. So that's something that has been, I'm embarrassed to say how long it's been on the agenda, but we will be coming back hopefully with some more information about that in the future.
Okay, look forward to that. Are there any questions for Melissa on her activity report? One comment that I would like to make, I know that we have been receiving a number of concerns and questions about the operations at Maple Lake on a variety of different levels. I just wanted to say that the Maple Lake has had a lot of changes made to it, a lot of improvements, that operations are evolving, and some of the practices, some of the things that we're doing are best practices. And also legislative requirements. So I just ask that the public be patient and understand that there's good rationale behind the practices being used there. Having said that, could I have a mover and a seconder to receive the activity report? Councillor Barry, Councillor Richards.
By Councillor Barry, second by Councillor Richard, be it resolved, council acknowledge receipt of environmental report EB 23 submitted by Melissa Murray dated July 18th for information.
All in favor? That's carried. Thanks, Melissa.
Thank you.
Next up is building and bylaw. And the first item is the draft dog control bylaw. Morning, gentlemen.
Morning. Madam Mayor, I'm here to bring back the dog bylaw. As council can recall, we did in February bring forward a draft bylaw for dog control. Reports before you with changes made on requests from council. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Questions from council and or comments? Councillor Barry?
I have a couple questions in regards to the dangerous dog declaration. My understanding was that declaration was previously either through the hospital, if there was a bite, or through the health unit, and then there was a visit to the house to, to collect information, to make a report, and to meet said animal. Is any of that still going to be in place, or is that just now the person that's making the declaration and our staff?
Through you, Madam Mayor, that declaration will, like the hospitals and the health unit have their own forms that they would send over. The declaration that we would be using is for the witness and the victim at that point, that the bite happened against.
I
Go ahead.
guess what my feeling with that is could there be, a neighbor dispute that, is looking for some sort of leverage against the neighbor, and they're going to make a declaration where there isn't actual proof of an incident through either the health unit or the hospital?
So that, through you, Madam Mayor, if that was a neighborly dispute was there, the health unit would investigate as well as we would. So we would take that declaration, but I mean, the declaration is just basically a witness statement. They're not declaring it dangerous or anything like that.
Madam CAO?
I think that's key for clarification for council, is that it isn't a member of the public that's able to make a declaration. They submit a form that describes what they have witnessed, and the township makes the declaration.
After investigation?
Yeah.
Councillor Barry?
And the investigation will still continue with the health unit? Or it will only, the investigation is only now with the township?
Through you,
Go ahead.
Madam Mayor, they would conduct their own investigation and we would conduct our own and then collaborate.
So the two different investigations happen independently and then there's
Yes, Madam Mayor.
meeting of the minds. Councillor Richards? If you could just pull your microphone a little bit closer to you.
So, right now, when a person is bit by a dog, they have to go to the hospital and be looked at. A report from the hospital is made to the health unit. And does the health unit at that point notify the township of what happened, or they just do their own thing? And if it's completely independent, so it would require that person making a report to the township outside of the health unit for the township to become involved. It's then the township declaring, based on the investigation, possibly that the dog is dangerous. So it's something completely separate from the health unit. The health unit would only give a muzzle order for 10 days. How long does the township muzzle order remain in place if they've been served with one?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the muzzle order would be in place indefinitely. And the public would have their chance to come before council through a delegation if they would to seek an appeal.
The public or the owner?
Sorry, sorry, my apologies, the dog owner.
Additional questions? Councillor Barry?
Where is the rationale in like, my understanding was the 10-day order was to make sure rabies wasn't a part of the wasn't part of the problem. But that's it. I guess where do we get to make the decision indefinitely versus 10 days? Like, there's a big difference between 10 days and indefinitely.
Well, through you, Madam Mayor, through our investigation, if it comes down that we find the facts that that dog is indeed dangerous using criteria set out in DOLA, it spells out their determination of a dangerous dog. So we've put that in our bylaws, so we follow that as well. The 10-day quarantine period, that's strictly health unit. We don't have a say on that. If the health unit says we're 10-day, it is 10-day. But through our investigation, if we determine that it is dangerous, we will add one for the safety of our constituents here in Algonquin Islands.
But the owner does have an opportunity to come and appeal based on the performance of the dog, or that there haven't been any subsequent issues.
That's correct.
Mr. Moore.
If I may, Madam Mayor, a little bit of clarification. The health unit quarantine is for disease transmission. So it has nothing to do with really the outcome of the bite. The bite, what we're trying to do with the muzzle orders through the township is if the dog is going to bite, and through the investigation will show if it was provoked or not. That's all part of the criteria. It's not taken lightly. But if there's a muzzle order, it's for the safety of the public. The health unit is really quarantined with the muzzle for the transmission of disease. So
It's my understanding that this is being presented. I mean, we have a dog bylaw. This is being presented to us in order to provide for our bylaw enforcement officers to be able to deal with a circumstance should it arise. It hasn't arisen. It hasn't necessarily been a problem, but if it did arise, we do have the ability to deal with it, as opposed to not having any regulations to deal with it. So, that it's up to council to determine whether or not that's a requirement. Other questions? Councillor Barry and then Deputy Mayor Dayu.
This is gonna go a little bit beyond the dangers or above the dog bylaw. I've had a couple of complaints about other animals, and I just wonder, there's been several complaints about cats running at large and, going into people's garages, urinating, scratching things, getting things that cats do. And there's no mechanism that the township has in regards to bylaws, and I don't know if the health unit is involved. I don't think they are. So I just wonder, are we just picking on dogs today, or is there an opportunity for some sort of consideration? I know that there can be damage to people's property from cats as well.
CRCAO has a comment to that. I would suspect that, well, go ahead.
I just want to clarify that we're not picking on dogs, like staff aren't bringing it forward to pick on dogs. We have a current dog bylaw, and it, obviously Mr. Massey is tasked with updating bylaws, and that's why it's before council. It does, as the mayor said, give the means to handle a situation if there is a dog bite like that. And it's under current legislation. There isn't current legislation, is my understanding, for cats or anything like that.
I'm wondering under the circumstance, because you've mentioned this, particular issue, more than once, whether it would be a civil matter that would have to be dealt with because there's damage being done to, between neighbors' property. But as a follow-up to Councillor Barry's question, and I know people looked at me a little oddly when I asked this question the last time we had the discussion, what do we do about the rogue donkey, goat, pig? We are having more small hobby farms, and there are properties in Algonquin Highlands where there's a variety of animals. What do we do, with an animal like that? Is there any mechanism for you guys to deal with that? Not that a donkey's going to be rogue or cause any damage, but it might or could. What if it's a goat with horns and it's mad and it's charging at people and it hurts someone? I mean, has there been discussions within your department to consider whether this should be an animal control bylaw, or are we just trying to improve the status of our dog bylaw,
and
or both?
thank you, Mayor. Yeah, there's been an instance, about 2 instances since I've been here, of something other than a dog as far as a complaint. So that, and I know other municipalities have exotic animal bylaws. They encompass a lot of different, depending on the situation. That would be entirely up to council, of course, to decide whether or not we want to go further and reach out to other animals. But again, there hasn't been a lot of stats to support. From our point of view, we've only had, well, there was one pig that got loose a couple times. That was it.
I mean, there has been an argument made that there haven't been a lot of stats to suggest that we have a lot of problems with dogs. But, you know, as I previously said, this does give us the ability to deal with the circumstance should it arise. You've got the tools to deal with it. Deputy Mayor Dayu, you had a question or comment?
Thanks. I have two questions and one comment. First question has to do with section 3, licensing, point 3.1. Every person who owns or harbors a dog shall obtain a license for the dog. I wonder, is it worthwhile, in your opinion, just underscoring what is obviously implicit, that we're not talking about every person who owns a dog, but rather every property owner who owns a dog. It's not like every tourist who comes through or every short-term renter who comes through has to register their animal. And the only reason I say that is because if we look down into further sections, like section 4, responsibility of a dog owner, we talk about every person again, but that's when we're really talking about every person who owns or harbors a dog. You know, you must clean up after your dog. It doesn't matter where you pay your taxes. So I just wonder if it would be worthwhile differentiating between those two categories of people. And a follow-up to that is just that you know better than I about the complexity of cottage ownership in our township. So if it is indeed for section 3.1, every property owner who owns or harbors a dog, are we talking about the principal property owner, or what about their 4 adult children who use the cottage as often as the principal property owner and they all have dogs? Are we requesting them to do the same? How do we draw that line?
So through you, Madam Mayor,
Mhm.
reading this again, thank you, Councillor. Yeah, it would, I would say that it would relate to the property owner, not every person. I agree with you, like, we're not gonna stop every person coming in just having a rental for a weekend to have the dog licensed in our municipality. It would be the property owner there. And when it comes to cottagers, we've added at the request of council from the previous meeting, 7.2, I believe, is the exemption that if the cottage owner has their pet, their dog licensed in their primary municipality of residence, then as long as they have that dog tag there, then they're exempt from getting a license from here.
But as a follow-up to the use of the term property owner, that doesn't cover the fact that there might be their family that's actually using the property on a regular basis, is here on a regular basis, and somehow they haven't been encompassed into the bylaw.
I think we can amend that wording to say anyone who resides. So they would have to be permanent residents, but they could rent a property here permanently and they would still qualify under that definition.
That might work.
And that, if I may, that would cover what Deputy Mayor said regarding, you know, the 4 adult children that have a dog. If they reside here, even if they reside at home with the property owner, they would still be required to get a dog tag.
Go ahead.
And do we have in our municipality a definition of reside? If they're up for 3 weeks a year, is that reside?
Go ahead.
I think we could have the same definition as possibly in the Elections Act. I'm not sure. I'm looking at Dawn.
We have to look at that definition.
So we need to give that some thought. You know, I've got to say, just, and this is semantics for me, but the use of the word harbor, I take exception to. To me, the word harbor means hide. you know, that you're hiding something from people as opposed to that you're keeping a dog or that you own a dog or that the dog's on a property. And I actually looked at the definition and I accept that it fits, but it also, in my mind, does not. It suggests something secretive in my mind, and that's just me, but I don't like that word in that particular sense and the item that Deputy Mayor Dayu is talking about. Okay, we'll go back to you and then over to Councilors Richards and Barry.
Great. I just have one more question and then a quick comment. The other question has to do with point 4.4. Which is no person who owns or keeps a dog or dogs shall knowingly or unknowingly permit such dogs to run at large while found in any place other than the premises of the owner. How does Crown land come into play? Because a lot of people have, follow trails in Crown land and they let their dogs run free there. Do we have jurisdiction over Crown land in this case?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I don't believe we do on Crown land.
I'm glad you raised that because that was one of my questions, because, what if there's a dog park established? They would be able to run free in a dog park.
That would be correct, yeah. That's something that I can definitely look at and get back to council.
Okay.
And then finally, I think the fee structure looks really reasonable. I really do. I looked at some other municipalities and cities around the province, and I think this is a really decent and kind fee structure. So I'm happy to see that.
If in fact fees can be kind, this is. Councillor Richards and then Councillor Barry.
Deputy Mayor Dayu actually went into my question. So if we don't have jurisdiction over Crown land for this, I actually, to be honest, find it quite weak because we have so much Crown land and very little municipal in comparison. So we would have jurisdiction over municipal public land and private land, but trying to control a dog off leash weaving throughout Crown and municipal, like I see a lot of this being very difficult to enforce, especially on excrement and leashing. All I can hope for, I suppose, is that, perhaps putting this out there and people being aware of it, that brings it down, or makes people more aware to do it. I like the idea of establishing the dog park, since we don't have one. And it gives somewhere for dogs to run free. Because I think that every dog owner wants their dog to have that opportunity.
I think we really do have ample opportunity for play.
They do with the Crown land, right? But and most people don't have gates and fences. It's just not a thing up here.
Maybe that's something that you can bring up during projects and priorities and put it up against other priorities.
But I do find this difficult to really control. And I am getting a lot of complaints about unleashed dogs, particularly lately. So I think we have to do something only on the part that, it's not necessarily the dogs that are running free that are the problem. It's the ones that are leashed that are trying to be controlled by their owner. And because there's other unleashed dogs around, making it into a dangerous situation.
Well, and sometimes the problem is the owner, not the dog.
Yes.
Good. Madam CEO, did you have a comment? I thought I saw your wheels turning.
I did, because I wanted to get clarification. I didn't hear that we were establishing a dog park, but that's what.
No, that's, I mean.
Okay. And the other thing I wanted to add is just that the bylaw, our dog bylaw is complaint driven, for sure. If there are complaints, I would respectfully request that they get sent here so that we can use that in our stats, because we don't currently have that. And the Crown land piece, it is difficult. There's no question about that. But the complaints generally come from a dog running at large on someone's property, not on Crown land. So the Crown land piece, while it is gray, it's never so far, thankfully, been a problem. It's where it's on private property is the problem.
Actually, we're over to Counselor Berry.
Yeah, I personally, just in regards to the Crown land piece, like, I feel like there's, just like some children, like, there's some animals that need to run to be better animals, like same with like children, some children just need to have a little bit of freedom, so.
Speaking from experience.
I would hope that we don't go too heavy-handed in regards to Crown land if we don't have jurisdiction over the land. That's just my thought on that.
We don't have the jurisdiction to do that anyway, so.
And I also feel like if, all the bad dogs are muzzled, then all the dogs technically could run free on Crown land without any worries, but that's just a side. My one question is in regards to the exemption. 7.2 says that any owner whose primary residence is outside of the township and has registered their dog with their respective municipality shall be exempt from section 3.1, which is, sorry, that every person who owns or harbors a dog shall obtain a license. Does that mean that is the only exemption? Just that every dog that's in the community has a license, whether it's from here or, Oshawa or wherever? But that if a dog coming into the community with let's just continue, with an Oshawa license has a dog bite, we would still be how would that work in regards to a dangerous dog? A licensed dog from another community comes in, causes a ruckus. How does that work? Would that dog be exempt? Would there be?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, for licensing purposes, for how we've written it in the bylaw, yeah, they would be exempt because they would have that tag that's licensed there. But if they're just
Exempt from licensing, but
exempt from licensing, not any enforcement that would happen.
So if a dog was deemed to be dangerous, even though it was from out of town, I'm assuming there would be an investigation, some requirement for muzzling or whatever, action you felt was appropriate, correct?
Correct. We would take the appropriate investigation steps and go through a proper full investigation.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Councillor Richards, then Deputy Mayor Dayu.
Well, once again, Councillor Berry kind of went into my question, but like if other municipalities have perhaps not got such a bylaw and their dog has bitten somebody in a different municipality, I don't think we would know. So it would be us issuing a separate dangerous dog. And so when that dog comes into our municipality, it's classified a dangerous dog. But when it leaves, it's not. That's kind of how that goes.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I would say so, because the muzzle order would be in effect for our township. And if they did have a license tag from their primary city residence, we could inform that municipality and let them know what has happened.
Angie, go ahead.
I just want to clarify the exemptions because the 7.2 that's been added there, it's my understanding that means that anyone from outside the township who already has a dog license from their township can come to Algonquin Highlands and register their dog, and they are exempt from getting a license here, which is through section 3.1. That's how I read that.
They have to register their dog?
That's how that reads.
I have to think about that. Councillor Berry.
Doesn't 7.2 say that they would be exempt from registering their dog?
That's how I interpreted it, but
Through you, Madam Mayor. They would be exempt from purchasing.
Yeah.
But you're
because
still
of-
saying they have to come in and register the dog?
Yes, they, by our request by an officer, that, yeah, they would have to show proof that they are licensed and that, and we would take that information.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Dayu?
Just on that, my interpretation as a general reader would be, I don't have to do anything unless my dog poses a problem, in which case Mr. Bylaw Man is gonna ask me for some proof and I'm gonna give it to him.
Right,
That's how I read it as.
me too.
Okay,
Carry on.
great. So just back to back to 4.4 on the Crown land. I wonder if it would be clearer for folks reading the bylaw, given this conversation, if we flipped from exclusion to inclusion language by saying no person who owns or keeps a dog or dogs shall knowingly or unknowingly permit such dog or dogs to run at large on private or municipal property, rather than while found in any place other than the premises of the owner. And that way we're sort of saying, without saying it, Crown land is up to
Somebody
your own
else.
good luck.
Can other members agree with that? That makes sense. Councillor Richards?
I can agree with that. I think that's good to let people know. I wonder about the muzzle order for a dangerous dog on Crown land, and if we're essentially saying a dangerous dog can also run at large on Crown land without a muzzle if it's dangerous.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the muzzle order applies within our jurisdiction. So if the Crown land's within our township, it applies. Like, even going on Crown land, they would still need a muzzle order because it applies for when they're leaving their property. If they leave their property and they have a muzzle order attached, that's been issued to them by the bylaw department, they would require, as soon as the dog leaves with the owner off their property of the owner, they would be required to have that dog on a muzzle.
To me, that makes sense. I mean, if the dog, it wouldn't be given, there would be no muzzle order issued unless the dog was deemed to be dangerous, and that's a dangerous dog no matter where they are. It doesn't mean they can't run free, but they need to have a muzzle. Councillor Richards?
But I don't understand how that's applicable if we don't have jurisdiction on Crown land. And same thing, if they leave our municipality, how do we have any
We don't.
justification to enforce a muzzle order? So it wouldn't apply.
Through you, Madam Mayor.
Go ahead.
Again, the muzzle order that the bylaw department would issue is just in the jurisdiction of Algonquin Highlands. If we did investigate that dog and declare it dangerous in our township, and they did have a tag for another township, we could share information with that other township. However, the muzzle order is just here in the Algonquin Highlands, and it's only for when they leave the property of the owner who owns that dog.
Madam CAO?
And that falls within legislation. That ability falls within the Dog Owner Liability Act. So that's why it can apply to Crown land. The running at large doesn't fall under that.
I have a question under section 2.3. Dangerous dog means any dog that has killed a domestic animal regardless of the circumstances. And I guess I was a little concerned about the use of the term regardless of the circumstances. Because to me, it would depend on the investigation. Like, if by chance one dog killed another, you're saying it doesn't matter that the other dog was the instigator or you know, the problem to begin with. It didn't matter that dog still is a dangerous dog. But if it was, you know, baited somehow or, you know, I mean, we know that there are people, I hate to say this, but there are people in this world who have dogs and they train them to be as dangerous as possible. And if someone has trained their dog to be like that and another dog is aggravated by that dog and ends up killing it in a fight. I'm a little bit concerned about the regardless of circumstances, and I'm not quite sure how to get around that. But to me, it didn't take into consideration the results of an investigation. Like you might actually find out that it wasn't the dog's fault.
Through you, Madam Mayor.
What if it killed a wolf? Oh, it's just domestic, sorry, go ahead. Sorry, I'll take that back.
Through you, Madam Mayor. This, section 2.3, the dangerous dog definition was taken right from DOLA, the dog owner's life.
If you wouldn't mind explaining DOLA, just because it's an acronym that not everyone.
Dog Owners Liability Act.
Okay.
It's provincial legislation. And staff have used the Dog Owners Liability Act to put together this bylaw as well. And that's where the definition for dangerous dog has come out of.
Okay, thank you. Angie.
And I pulled up the act. Sorry. I've pulled up the act just to reference for council. And there is section in the act that says where a dog has bitten or attacked a person or a domestic animal. It doesn't reference in any circumstance. So I maybe just do a little bit more reading here, if you don't mind.
Okay. My next point was under what had been section 5.6. About the schedules, that the schedules have been removed from the bylaw in order to allow us to continue to, update them wherever required without necessarily bringing a whole bylaw back for review. My understanding is that the first iteration of the bylaw, that there were some inconsistencies between the schedules and the bylaw itself. And I'm just kind of wondering why we're not seeing the schedules. I know that there were some concerns about, there were forms that people fill out. Initially, it appeared that it was a member of the public who was able to make a declaration that a dog was dangerous. I guess, before it sounds like we are going to need to make a few more minor tweaks to this bylaw before it's adopted. I would like to ensure that we see the schedules, even though they're not part of the bylaw, just to make sure that there are no concerns associated with them. I know that the fee schedule is one thing, and maybe I'm using the wrong term in associated with the forms that are attached to this that people need to fill out, but I think we need to see those as well and make sure there are no inconsistencies.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the schedules were just the administration forms that the officers would use to bring up one about the declaration. It's a declaration regarding a dangerous dog. It's not basically it's it's around this. It is a witness statement. Is basically what that form is.
Okay.
If council wishes, we can change the wording on that form.
I guess we just want to see it, given that it has, such potential for investigation and could be pretty dramatic results. I personally would like to see the form and make sure that it's appropriate to what we're trying to achieve here. Other questions or comments? Councillor Berry.
Was there somewhere in here that it talked about an appeals committee? Is there an appeals committee that needs to be set up with this bylaw?
It says the council would be the appeal group.
Through you, Madam Mayor. So we've worded it to say that either council or a committee designated by council. So they can just come, if council wishes, the dog owner can just come as a delegation to council.
Thoughts on that? Do you think we need to have an appeals committee? Or that if someone wants to make an appeal about something that they can come directly to council? I'm seeing two come to council nods.
I guess where I feel is that Is that something that would be an open council, that would be televised? Is that?
I would suggest that it might be in closed session. I'm not, but I've looked to our staff for some response to that.
Well, it would depend on the circumstances. Were there charges laid? Are there charges or enforcement pending? Personal information? It would determine what the issue is before we could determine that.
I mean, the same issue would be in place if it was a committee, because the committee meetings are all open to the public as well. So, you know, I'm not sure. Need to think about that. Councillor Richards.
I'd like to personally see it be something that is more private, but if we can't get around it, we can't get around it. I think probably being at committee would just by nature.
I'm sorry?
I think being at committee would just by nature, the public tends to pay less attention to committee meetings versus our council meetings. I think something like that is more comfortable to be done in private. I don't know legally where we would stand on that.
But what are you saying? You think that it should be a committee, or you think it should be council?
We don't know how many of these we would actually get. To form a committee for one a year or one every 5 years would be kind of out there. But to protect the dog owner, you know, I think the committee would be better. But
Why? Committee meetings are open to the public.
I know they are, but they're just less visible.
Is that being open and transparent?
It is, because it is open to the public.
Okay, just asking. Any other questions or concerns about the bylaw? Rob?
In my experience, my last experience, that I've had with an appeal for an order that I got issued. The township that I was working for, it was, it came through open council. Just
And if there were issues, as our clerk has said, if there were specific issues that were associated with privacy, then, you know, that would change that circumstance, but. Councillor Berry?
I know I've already brought up the cat issue and that this is a dog bylaw. But there's no way that you can input into even just section 4, the responsibility of a pet owner? Or does it have to be specific? Because I'm just thinking in section 4, it talks about, you know, not having excrement left by the animal, reasonable precautions of a domestic animal, muzzling an animal. I mean, I don't know if we can muzzle a cat, but no, but there's some things in there. I just wonder if there's no way, like, I think just keeping your cats from going onto other people's properties, I find it a little biased that the cats get to run free. I know it's like logistically maybe harder, but it seems like they just get the right. Doesn't seem equal across the
Well, they're
board.
cats. No, I'm just kidding. You know what, this complicates. I mean, this is a dog bylaw.
Yeah.
And it kind of goes to the question of whether we want to have a animal control bylaw over and above. Like I do see, despite the frustrations of the people involved, that's likely a civil matter. I could be wrong, but I think that it would be a civil matter if there's damage that's being done. But I mean, it comes down to, do you want it to be an animal control bylaw? We can't insert cats into the dog bylaw. Deputy Mayor, do you, and that, well, maybe we should just go to Rob first and then over to you.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, just in response to Councillor Berry's comments. Bylaw would be involved if the, and I've heard this information from the health unit through the Communicable Diseases Act, I believe it is. When a cat bites a human, that's where bylaw would come in and enforce that piece of provincial legislation. Other than that, no, there's nothing, we don't have anything, there's nothing regulating cats running at large. It would be at council's discretion to say either, animal control bylaw or another separate cat bylaw.
There are regulations with respect to licensing and performance of cats I know in urban communities. Do you have any notion about how they deal with that sort of thing?
Through you, Madam Mayor, no, I don't, I specifically honest about that. That's something that I would have to definitely research and I can bring back to council if council shows. So
I know that Councillor Barry is trying to respond to concerns that continue to be raised with her about what do I do? Like, what can you do to help me, or what do I do in this circumstance? And we don't really seem to have an answer
You
for
know,
them.
It was said to me, well, what if my dog, identifies as a cat? Is this bylaw exempt? Like,
Well,
I
let's
don't-
not get too carried away.
No, but I mean, these are comments and I feel like if you're a responsible pet owner, you're a responsible pet owner.
We're not disagreeing with you. It's just how do we
Is
change this as a dog bylaw?
would this bylaw be coming into place with, the muzzle portion and all of that? Because the complaints are more on dogs running at large, or because there's more dangerous dogs? Like, which is the
Well,
driving force?
I
of
think
the
I
bylaw?
tried I mean, there hasn't been a lot of statistics. This suggests that we have a lot of problems. This allows us to deal with it, gives us the mechanism to deal with it if there is a dangerous dog. If somebody's dog bites or damages or hurts the neighbor's child, we have the ability to deal with that. Or somebody's dog, bites, gobbles up somebody's chihuahua, it's just, there's a method to deal with that. And that the likelihood of that happening with dogs is much greater than the likelihood of it happening with cats. I see Madam CAO and then Councillor Richards.
And I think that that's exactly the point is there, because of the legislation that was put in place under the dog owner liability, there's been many cases of dog maulings. And so legislation was put in place that allows municipalities to deal with that. It's very different for cats, obviously. They don't have that same impact as when there's a dog mauling. So there isn't that same legislation in place for cats.
Councillor Richards?
I do support Councillor Barry in looking at more of an animal control bylaw. Because there are a lot of other pets out there beyond cats. There's ferrets and mink and all kinds of animals that are quite
Donkeys,
dangerous.
goats, horses,
Donkeys,
pigs.
goats, tigers, alligators.
Not
snakes.
well, there might be snakes.
So, I do think, an animal control bylaw is more appropriate. But, the dog control bylaw, in my eyes, is a response to DOLA specifically. So.
Any other comments? So recognizing and acknowledging the work that you've done on this, I'm hearing that this needs to come back. Is it council's desire as a whole to investigate an animal control bylaw or not at this time? Council, Deputy Mayor Dayu.
If that is the will of council, I'm happy to support, but not in a way that holds this up. I see them as quite separate things. I would prefer to see this go through.
I do see that there's, and that I believe that there might be a lot more public comment. I wonder if maybe we can do a survey to see if that there's a will for that to be, for there to be an animal control bylaw. I don't know that we're in full agreement that, I've asked the question myself, but I don't know if it's something that's really really and truly necessary, except for the concerns that Councillor Barry raises about the cats, and it's a valid concern. If there's a number of cats living next door that are causing damage and defecating and literally damaging property, I'm not sure if there's a mechanism for them to deal with it other than civilly.
No, I would absolutely agree with that. And certainly we can investigate the animal control bylaw. Just want council to be aware that if that's the road we go down and that's a bylaw that we pass, there will be extensive training that needs to be done because, you know, with the dog bylaw, we staff all attend pretty extensive training for dog handling. And so none of our staff have the ability to handle livestock or, you know, snakes or anything like that. And certainly I'm not sure we have the capacity to do that. So that's something that we would have to bring back with a recommendation.
I just had this crazy vision of one of our bylaw officers chasing down the road after a cow. Okay, thank you for your work. I guess at this point in time, we would receive the report and look for the bylaw to come back to us. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't go forward with the pound agreement, right?
If councils wish to go ahead, yeah, we can absolutely go ahead with it. We have a current dog bylaw, so.
Could I have a mover and a seconder to receive the revised bylaw, draft bylaw? Councillor Richards, seconded by Councillor Shortreed. I think we'll just work our way through the rest of building bylaw and building and bylaw and then take our break.
By Councillor Richards, second by Councillor Shortreed, be it resolved, council receives report BLDG 624 regarding the revised draft dog control bylaw, and the council directs the bylaw be brought back for further discussion.
All in favor? That's carried. So next up is the pound services agreement, which once again, I'm very happy to see that we have an agreement with someone who's within the county as opposed to outside the county, which is excellent. If you want to.
Yes, thank you,
Comment on that.
Mayor. This is just simply brought back with the updates. The insurance has all been obtained. It's all complete now, just for council's approval, so.
Are there any questions or concerns about the pound agreement? Could I have a mover and a seconder too? Oh, okay, so it's just under bylaws. If there are no questions. So we'll move on to the building officials code of conduct.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, the building officials code of conduct is required by the act to be in place. So it was identified that it was lacking. So we've now resolved that. As you see the policy before you, is there any questions on it's a standard policy that has been fashioned from other municipalities? And
I did not see anything untoward in the policy, but are there any questions or comments from council? Deputy Mayor Dayu?
Just to clarify, so this is only for the building inspectors, the other bylaw piece of the department, it does not fall under this.
correct.
Possibly it should.
The
But I'm wondering whether, the legislation that is being drawn from deals with that somehow, but that wouldn't preclude us from having a policy. We have a code of conduct policy anyway
Correct.
that would cover that. Any other questions? Okay, could I have a mover and a seconder to receive and approve? Deputy Mayor Dayu, Councillor Barry?
Moved by Deputy Mayor Dayu, second by Councillor Barry, be it resolved, council receives report BLDG 1424 regarding proposed code of conduct for building officials, and council directs a bylaw be brought forward to adopt the code of conduct for building officials and inspectors as presented.
All in favor? That's carried. Finally, there's your June monthly activity report.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Not uncommon or unlike the previous reports, permits are down a little bit from previous year. We ended up at the end of the month with 15,000 in fees and excess of 4.5 million of construction values.
Any questions or comments on the report? The one thing that I might suggest would be helpful under your itemized complaint responses. You say one dog control. Would there, I'm just wondering if it might be more appropriate to say, dash running at large. So we're getting a little bit better indication of the type of issue that you're dealing with.
Yeah, that's certainly integrate that into the next report. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Could I have a mover and a seconder then to receive the monthly activity report? Deputy Mayor Dayu, Councillor Richards.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Dayu, second by Councillor Richards. Be it resolved, Council receives building bylaw report BLDG 1524 regarding June monthly activities for information.
All in favor? That's carried. So we'll break for 15 minutes. Welcome back to the open session. Next is Parks, Recreation and Trails. Morning, Mr. Card. The first item is the proposal for a pathway and a swing set at the Stung Lake Community Center.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Mayor and Council. So this is a project that has had a few different components to it, and Council will recall the previous Oxtongue Lake Community Center committee had reviewed some layout for the location of the swing set and the vault privy that's on site. And then we had previously put in the pavilion. And at that time, we had taken out the swing set. And we're now back to installing the swing set. We are required to tie the components together for accessibility with an accessible pathway. So I've put a plan together which outlines where I'd like to put that accessible pathway, as well as the swing set, which was already discussed and approved by the committee and brought to council previously. This would be outlining the whole thing, which looking for any feedback from council, after which I'd take it to the county's Accessibility Advisory Committee, which is required under the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act, and then go to our request for proposal process. So what I'm proposing is that this pathway will link the parking lot through the entranceway pergola that has the group of 7 paintings in it, to the building entranceway downstairs, along the side of the pavilion, around the pavilion, and then link over to the swing set, which would be on the back tree line of the property, and then branch off and go over to the vault privy. I've outlined all of that in an image. The gray portion of the image would be the gravel pathway, compacted crushed granite, similar to what we've used both at the Dorset Lions Park as well as the park adjacent to us here in Stanhope successfully. It meets all accessibility requirements. But looking for thoughts and feedback from council. The swing set, I've given an example of what I'm thinking for a swing set. It would have safety surfacing all the way around it. It would meet CSA requirements, including components for accessibility, which would be the accessible swing component, a toddler swing component, and then 2 just regular swing swings in a 2-bay swing type setup. Once we get into the request for proposal, I'll then see a final option for the swing set, but it'll look very similar to that.
From my perspective, looking at through, I mean, thank you for the layout drawings. I mean, it kind of clearly shows where things go. The only comment that I would make is that I had kind of envisioned that the swing set might be, if you're looking at the top picture, closer to the corner of the field, the right-hand corner of the field. It's just that, it looks to me like the pathway breaks up the green space or the, you know, sort of the play field space, which would be my only concern. I mean, I'm sure that the committee has looked and thought about this quite a bit, but that would be my only comment about it. Deputy Mayor Day?
And I think part of that reason is that the committee had spoken of a little pollinator garden area for that corner.
Correct.
So it wouldn't actually be a breakup so much as probably not hugging the pollinator garden, but it, you know, there would be a space where beautiful green things are growing. And this would come closer to it.
Which is great. It just looks like the pathway goes right across the field. So that if there was to be a field space for kids to play, it's broken up. But I mean, I don't have kids. It doesn't impact me. So it's just something I wanted to raise. Go ahead.
I absolutely hear what you're saying. The field itself is a bit deceptive in the photograph. It actually is quite large. It goes on beyond the privy for quite a distance. You could have a whole football match back there, regardless of this path.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other comments or questions? So could I have a mover and a seconder then to receive the report and basically approve what's being proposed? Yep, go ahead.
About the little pollinator garden patch, is that still, and I apologize for not having this answer in my memory, is that still in the cards?
It is still planned exactly as you understand it, and I want to tie that into this whole thing and make sure I have everything happening in a way that the construction one isn't going to adversely affect the other. Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, mover and a seconder. Councillor Berry, Deputy Mayor Dayoud.
Moved by Councillor Berry, second by Deputy Mayor Dayoud. Be resolved, Council receives Park Recreation and Trails Report, PRT 1524, regarding Oxton Lake Community Center Green Space Proposal for accessible pathway and swing set for information, and that Council directs staff to proceed with the proposed design as outlined in the report.
All in favor? That's carried. Next is your monthly activity report.
That's correct. So over the past month is very much onboarding of many of our seasonal staff, which then all of the training goes along with that. And then right into what I refer to as peak operating season as far as visitation goes, usage of all of our locations and taking care of those. And then, of course, a large portion of the past month has been taken up by getting things in place for the grand opening event for the Dorset Rec Center, which we're very excited about. I will send out a agenda outline to council by email. But next Saturday, 11 to 2, we certainly hope to see everybody in the community out on the 27th for the grand opening of the Dorset Recreation Center. We have a band, we have various forms of entertainment, food will be served, and opening up at the Tapscott Lopez Park there with a plaque unveiling, and then over to the Dorset Recreation Center where everybody will be able to tour the newly renovated space. So come one, come all. Those are the highlights.
Where's the plaque actually going to be located?
So that's being installed next week, and if you're standing in the parking lot looking at the pavilion, there's stonework that comes down the pathway on the right-hand side in an L shape. Going to put it inside the corner of that stonework, quartering towards the pathway and parking area. So right at the entrance.
Okay, sounds great. I think that we will all be there. There might be one of our members of council might have a conflict who's trying to deal with that, I think, but the rest of us will all be there and are ready to assist and do everything that we need to do. With respect to the park, I know that you've been really busy, but I'm just wondering, talking about pollinator gardens and gardens, we have talked about we've committed ourselves actually to doing an Indigenous garden in that area. And one of the things that we have not landed on is where that might be, how much space that might take up. So I'm kind of hoping that we'll hear from you with regards to that at some point in time, some thoughts.
And council will recall that agreement, gave us 3 years to
Right.
do that, so we'll bring that back.
I just kind of want to get ahead of the curve in case, other groups come and say, we'd like to build this or do that, or,
And on that note, we haven't gotten to the point of considering locations, et cetera, for that. So certainly once we get to that point, we'll be able to bring some plans back.
Surprisingly enough, I have had a couple of people approach me and say, we hope that you're going to leave the field, that kids can go and kick around a ball and run, and, that we won't take up too much of the green space with other things. And we've got lots of time to think about all of those things, but I just didn't want the garden to take up too much space, and kind of identify where the best location is. And, Mr. Tapscott may have some ideas about that.
Absolutely.
Any questions on the activity report or upcoming events? All pretty exciting. Okay, could I have a mover and a seconder to receive the activity report? Councillor Barry, Councillor Shortreed.
Moved by Councillor Barry, second by Councillor Shortreed, be it resolved, Council receives Park Recreation Trails Report PRT 1624 regarding monthly activities for the month of June for information.
All in favor? That's carried. Next is a discussion on a cashless tower.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. So this year, one of the identified projects was to be able to get a payment option in place at the gatehouse of the tower that would integrate with our Perfect Mind software, which we've had for several years, that we use for recreation related things, and we use it in the gift shop. Because right now we use a few different various processes, which are literally just paper and pen at the gatehouse. We do have a wireless option for payment processing at the gatehouse, but as I've gotten into looking at whether or not I could do what's called integrate a system with payments with our Perfect Mind, that's wireless at the gatehouse, I've determined that it's not possible. So I've started looking at other options and reviewing the entire process and thinking of efficiencies and various possibilities. A large one is the consideration of cash there. It is possible to get various systems that would integrate cash, because right now, again, if people make a cash payment, our attendant is going out to a vehicle, they're taking a cash payment. If they want a receipt, they're going back inside, they're handwriting a receipt, they're giving it back to them. I can digitize that process, but it's additional budget that I don't have for this year planned. But there's various other challenges we've realized when I look at the whole process with cash there, and really around efficiencies and security. As far as efficiencies go, it's a pretty large day-end process, the way that it currently exists. And actually for some time, it often on busy days when there's a lot of cash to handle, causes staff to incur overtime. So we've been more recently reviewing that, and to reduce overtime, we push that into the next day, so they finish it the next morning. Which then causes some skew of statistics on my computer system, because they take the information from the gatehouse up to the gift shop at the end of the day, enter it into the Perfect Mind computer system there. So then there's the issue of security with cash at the gatehouse. We have a staff member on site by themselves in the gatehouse with cash. That cash then has to be brought down to the township office for deposit weekly. So we schedule another staff member so our coordinator can bring it down. And then we have to move float back and forth, which is very challenging in the village just because there's not bank services right there. So you have to make those considerations several weeks in advance, et cetera. So that's all to say that as I've looked at different options and the current hardware possibilities we have now, and I've actually been looking at some square pay options, and I've been talking to our landfill, Melissa Murray, who takes care of landfills and the payment options they have there, and they don't take cash there. So I've been looking at the possibilities. And I think there's a lot of opportunity at the tower to go ahead cashless. Have these efficiencies, reduce any security concerns, allow me to implement a payment processing system that's new, that has reporting possibilities, that eliminates several steps, eliminates a need for vehicles to go back and forth for deposits, et cetera. However, at the same time, I'm not entirely comfortable just saying, let's go completely cashless right now. What I'd like to do, if council supports it, is go cashless at the gatehouse now, keep cash at the gift shop. If people only had the option to pay with cash, they could still go up and pay for their entrance pass at the gatehouse. Do that throughout this year to allow us some time to assess how that goes, whether or not it's going to work, how big of a consideration it is, respond to any challenges we might not have seen or thought about. If it works out, then go cashless up at the gift shop as well, so completely cashless for next year. Or maybe it continues to be some sort of hybrid once I'm able to assess it. But essentially what I'm looking for today is council support to go cashless at the gatehouse with cash as an option at the gift shop, assess it over this year, and if it works out, go cashless completely on site at the gift shop. It is something, I did do some reviews of different organizations. It is something that's becoming more common, particularly for parking and entrance to parking areas, but also at large scale tourism operations. Places like Canada's Wonderland, for example, doesn't take any cash on the entire site. So it is something that people are becoming used to. We can take all other forms of payment, all cards, all major credit cards, Apple Pay on people's phones, et cetera, is all possible. There's no legal requirement to take cash on site. And in speaking to our environmental manager, hasn't been any issues at our landfill locations as far as not taking cash goes, and it works out quite well. So looking for council support to give it a shot.
I am glad to hear that you're leaving your options open then, and there isn't still an ability for, if you can't pay cash at the gate, that you can go up and pay cash at the gatehouse, and so that there's some options. I was a little surprised that you wanted to go ahead with it almost right away. And we've always kind of had this philosophy that, when we're moving towards more online services, that people still have the option. So, I guess I'd look to members of council for comments or questions about this. Councilor Berry.
Initially, when I read this, I got a little bit worried because I personally am a strong advocate of cash being able to be used. But using your phased in approach, I completely support that no one's going to be turned away if that's the only tender that they have. And I would hope that elimination would still come back to council after reviewing the process next year.
Deputy Mayor Daya.
My thoughts are entirely consistent with Councillor Barry's. I was worried about going cashless as a concept. I'm concerned about a cashless society. And as a mother of an 8-year-old who is earning a little bit of an allowance and who gets to go into places and choose what he does with his coins and his dollar bills, I think there is something to be said about, teaching kids how to budget and use their own money before they have a card. There are a whole series of reasons why I'm not in favor of a fully cashless society. So I do like the phased-in approach. I think you're right. Parking is something that people now are very familiar with as being cashless, and the default to go up to the gift shop. I think people will understand that differentiation. So I'm in support of what's being proposed.
What if someone doesn't have the cash at the gift shop, goes up top, enjoys walking around the area, looks at the view and then takes off?
So,
I mean,
yeah, and we
along with
have,
the rogue donkeys, are we going to have rogue visitors? I'm not saying that we do have that, but
and we have discussed that possibility amongst staff, and we have radios, we have handheld radios at the gift shop and the gatehouse. So if somebody had to come up, they would radio immediately, and then the gatehouse would have to watch for that vehicle come around. So we'd be asking that they go right in, right to the gift shop, and that's how we'd handle it.
okay, that takes care of that concern. Any other questions or comments? Could I then have a mover and a seconder to receive the report and approve proceeding with the partially cashless system for this year as a trial? Councillor Shortreed, Councillor Richards.
Moved by Councillor Fleury, second by Councillor Richards. Be it resolved, Council receives Park Recreation and Trails Report PRT 1724 regarding cashless payments at the Dorset Tower for information, and Council directs staff to proceed with eliminating cash from the Tower Gatehouse in 2024 as a trial period, adding the gift shop in 2025 pending the results of the trial period.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next up is Public Works. First is your report on the Dorset Rec Center.
Hello, Mayor, Council. Yeah, so things have been moving really well on the Dorset Rec Center. We were up there just last week. It was my last visit, and everything on the exterior was close to being finished. There is a couple items around the entranceway that has to be addressed that unfortunately won't be finished before the opening. It's just the supplier for the new door hasn't been able to deliver the door yet. So unfortunately, that kind of ties into a little bit of flashing around the upper part of the door. So when you're walking in, if you look up, it will look a little unfinished when you're there next weekend. Around the backside, today, I believe, or this week, the rear exit door down by the library that goes out onto the second level is going to be completed. The concrete stairs were put in for the kitchen entrance. And then just a little bit of tidying up from our staff side. And then on the interior, it's mostly completed. There's a couple little items of cleaning that need to be taken care of. There was a new floor that was put in the kitchen. The type of flooring that we used is the same flooring that is in the main floor of the building. So it took 48 hours for it to cure. So I believe either today or tomorrow, they'll be going in to put the dishwasher back in place. There's some stainless steel work to be done for the dishwasher, and then the kitchen will be back in working order. And then again, it's just a little bit of cleanup and getting it ready and organized for the big opening. So it's pretty exciting. It's been a long time, but it's definitely coming together very, very nicely. So look forward to next Saturday.
As do we all. Any questions on the rec center? Deputy Mayor Dayu?
Just a comment to say that the good folk of Dorset are really looking forward to this. Like, there's a lot of talk and a lot of excitement and happiness and genuine gratitude that it's opening back up, especially the gym. They're looking forward to the gym.
Well, that's good to hear. Always good to get positive feedback and happy people. Okay, next is the correspondence that we received from Mr. Edwards, requesting a community safety zone on North Shore Road. And just, I'm sure that you all got copies of follow-up, pictures of examples of community zone signs and speed limits. The only comment that I would make is this is a conversation that we've had several times now. We've had similar requests. The speed limit has been reduced. There's lots of slow down signs. There's an electronic sign that we put there periodically that I think council has previously determined that the willingness for the public to travel slower is just not there. I think that we've got speed limits reduced there sufficiently that we've had some success there. But to make it even slower on an emergency alternate route and a route that's a very busy route is might be challenging. But I would look to comments from council or questions or comments from yourself.
Through you, Mayor, thank you. Yeah, just to bring it back up again, we did talk about this last year. There was a report brought forward for the electronic speed signs that were put in place. And at that time, it was identified that, you know, the traveling public will become complacent with our signs as we leave them in there longer. So rotating them in and out is our plan for this year, to put our digital signs up in a couple different locations. Other than that, I concur with council's decision last year that what we need there is more enforcement, more OPP enforcement than actual signage or reduced speeds. Just a key note that some of our other roads have reduced speeds down to 40 kilometers an hour. And I think I wanted to touch base on that is some of the roads that do see a 40-kilometer-an-hour road have been identified in that aspect, not because of safety concerns of near misses or accidents, but the curvatures of the road. A lot of times the curvatures of the road will define a speed limit. So just to help everybody understand, one of our roads is we have a ball bank indicator is the device that goes on our truck. And we basically, the idea of it is that you drive the road at what is a safe speed. And then the indicator tells you whether or not the corner can handle the speed that you're taking it at safely. So some of our roads that are basically one gigantic corner for 2 kilometers, it's feasible to understand that we would reduce the speed on that road to a lower speed than say 50 kilometers an hour, just based on the amount of corners that are in the road. I just wanted to pass that along in case there's discussion on that. But other than that, again, it's just a matter of getting more enforcement on the road by OPP.
And I have spoken to, you know, being a member of the police board, or what was the CPAC. I've spoken about more enforcement on several, not just North Shore Road, but several of our roads, just because there has been some increased speeding. And do we not have a requirement if in fact we were going to consider making a change and reducing the speed, that it would come from more than one individual? Isn't there, or is there a requirement for a percentage of the population of a road? Or is that something that's passé?
In order to designate a community safety zone, yes, there's a requirement for a certain, and I can't honestly tell you what that percentage is. But there is a requirement in the legislation.
Any other comments or questions about this? Councillor Richards.
I don't think it's any secret that I find North Shore Road dangerous. That's my personal feeling. Especially the curve at the bridge, St. Peter's. I find it blinding. I'm wondering what would be required for us to make that a 3-way stop instead of like just the one stop on the St. Peter's side. I think that may help rather than reducing the speed to break that up.
It is a bad corner. I agree. That might be something that we could consider, because it's although there is a stop on the bridge, but because of the curve as you're going around and continuing east, I can see that might be something that we could consider. Councillor Barry.
Sorry, but did we not have that discussion in regards to the flow of that, maybe when we were talking about heavy trucks using the property or something, or the road? That staff felt it was safer to keep it as is than to change it. It was a couple of years ago, but I could be wrong.
I remember having a discussion about the fact that there were heavy trucks going east and then turning onto the bridge and creating damage at the corner and the guardrails that were there, but you could be right that it might be. I don't know.
Through you, Mayor.
You're our traffic specialist.
To be honest with you, I don't think I was a part of that conversation to put in stop signs. At one time, there was a yield to oncoming traffic sign, but it didn't fit in that location, so it was removed. The flow of traffic is North Shore Road, so to put a stop sign in there, certainly if council so chooses to have something put in, we can investigate that further. But I mean, that's the flow of traffic is North Shore is the straight through. St. Peter's is the road coming onto it. So adding a stop sign really wouldn't make sense. But again, if that's something that council so chooses, then we can certainly look at that. Now, in the past, we have looked at that corner because it is a corner with vegetation on the right hand and the left hand side. We have cut back to the property lines as much as we can. Taking anything more than that would be removing vegetation from private property. So we would have to discuss that with the property owner, should they choose to allow us to do that. But it's been my experience that no one wants their privacy taken away. So that could be a challenge as well.
Any other thoughts or questions or desire from other members of council to follow up on three-way stop? Deputy Mayor Dayu.
It's not about the three-way stop so much as the community safety zone. I wonder if I might ask the CAO for further clarification. Do you mean that if we, for example, if we put up a community safety zone sign, it would be an official designation? Okay, so we can't just say, hey, it's
No.
it's a safety spot. No, we can't do that. Okay. Is there anything that we would be able to put up? And I do appreciate that we've had sign conversations and that people start to get a bit blind to them. But if I'm going through a new area and I see a community safety zone sign, I immediately slow down, even if I'm going the speed limit, because I think, oh, there are children ahead. And I just wonder if there's any kind of thing that we could do that doesn't require an official petition or whatever it might be to remind to tell newcomers, there are lots of families ahead on this stretch. This is not your usual country lane. Or do we need official status for something?
Adam.
Thank you, through Mayor. Yeah, so as to define a community safety zone, it has to be done through bylaw of council. Through that, it has to identify a starting location and an end location of the community safety zone. The speed limit within a community safety zone can be designated between 30 and 50 kilometers an hour. And then by designating an area in a community safety zone, what that will do for legislation is that it could increase the increase the fines for speeding. So if a fine, if you're doing 10 over and a 50, the fine is $110, now it'll be 210 or 220 essentially, if you're caught doing it. So there are higher penalties for people getting fined within a community safety zone, but it has to be identified through bylaw. It has to be signage. A signage has to be in place, and it doesn't come into effect until the signage is put up with the bylaw.
I do know that we had this discussion last year and the request came from more than one individual that we give consideration to reducing the speed limit, not to establish a community safety zone. And we decided against that. This is a request from a single individual who does happen to live on an intersection, I believe. I'm not hearing a voice that says, let's go ahead with this. Madam CEO.
I just wanted to go back to Deputy Mayor Dayu's question. I mean, if council directed, we could put you know, slow signs, children playing signs. I worry about that giving a false sense of security for, you know, pedestrians, because it's still a road. And I don't know what position that would put us in from an insurance perspective. So we'd have to look into that a little bit further if council wanted to examine that.
I've got to say, there's something about the slow children playing signs that disturbs me. I mean, I understand the importance of them. I just think that there's a different way of wording it because it looks like slow children. Just every time I see the sign, that's my thought. Councillor Richards.
I'm concerned that a community safety zone isn't necessarily going to help. I think it'll help some people, but the slow down signs are already there to help those people who are willing to be cognizant of where they're driving through. The lack of OPP support in enforcing that more regularly than they do is probably the real issue. But that's why I suggest the stop signs may just stop it. That corner is dangerous, and I think a serious accident waiting to happen. So I strongly support doing something. And I do believe that the vast majority of residents on North Shore Road want us to do something.
Go ahead, Adam.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. So just one thing I wanted to bring up was when we went for funding, to try to get grant funding for the repairs to North Shore Road, one of the key factors that didn't allow us for the funding was that we have no accidents on that road. We have no documentation of accidents, of collisions, of any sort, that nothing has been documented, nothing has been brought forward. And that's not a survey that we would do, that was done by looking at our records through the OPP, going to them and asking for any kind of collisions that the fire department would have went to and things of that nature. We couldn't prove that road was dangerous, even though it's slumping into the lake. We couldn't prove that it was dangerous because we had no proof of near misses, accidents, etc. So I just wanted to bring that forward, that although we recognize it as a location that has the potential, we have had no incidents in any location on North Shore Road to date.
I would like to add too about North Shore Road, although we do acknowledge, and it is a share the road circumstance, that there's a responsibility on both sides of the fence here that, you know, I mean, people want people to slow down, people want people to drive safer. And yet we have incidents of bicycles and walkers who straddle the middle of the road, have no interest whatsoever in moving aside if there's traffic coming. And it's a two-way street, you know, when it comes to responsibilities and safe behavior. Now, Councillor Richards has suggested that she would like to see some investigation into a three-way stop or something done at the St. Peter's Corner. Are there other members of council who would like to see that happen? Or are we satisfied to the greatest extent possible with the status quo? Deputy Mayor Dayu.
I'd be happy to support Councillor Richards' thinking on that. You know, I don't.
An investigation.
An investigation into that. And for the record, I would personally favor exploring a community safety zone for the road.
I do not, you know, under the circumstances. I just don't see it as being successful. Although I take your point about when people actually see a community safety zone sign, they may at least, you know, trigger them a little bit more than a speed sign.
I agree with investigating the stop sign. That is a bad corner. So one more
Okay.
stop sign can't hurt. Maybe it'll slow people down a bit.
As it is in my ward, I personally haven't heard any complaints about that corner specifically. I have definitely heard more complaints about the speed. And it does seem like the speed is more of a complaint in the summer months than the rest of the year, with just the increase of, you know, traveling over to access the lake. I personally know that we've invested money in the road signs that can be moved around. I would like to know if there's any sort of mechanics to know how those are working, when they're working, if there's been a decrease, if we've seen how those work when we're using them. And also some sort of assurance that there is more police presence being happened. And I feel like if those two things happen and there's still no change, then I would possibly consider looking again at the community safety area. But I would like to use the tools that we have purchased right now and assurance from the OPP that there will be more attention given.
I will personally take it upon myself to speak to the OPP. We do have a new OPP detachment or an new interim OPT detachment commander, so I'll speak to her. And I'm sure that they will do, they've been pretty responsive when I've asked them, to do more patrols in certain areas. So I will take it upon myself. In the meantime, I'm hearing that Adam will do a little bit of investigation on a stop sign or three-way stop or, whatever might be a little more effective, maybe once again, possibly a yield. We'll leave that to you. So could I have a mover and a seconder then to receive the correspondence and to ask Adam to do some investigation at the St. Peter's Corner? Deputy Mayor Dayu, Councillor Shortreed.
By Deputy Mayor Dayu, second by Councillor Shortreed, be resolved, council receives correspondence from Eric Edwards regarding speed limit on North Shore Road for information. And the council directs the speed limit on North Shore Road remain at 50 kilometers an hour. And the council directs staff to investigate and report back to council on potential signing options at St. Peter's Road and North Shore Road.
All in favor? That's carried. Next is Airport Committee update.
For me, I think I would leave this up to the committee members if they'd like to talk about it.
I can talk about it. You know what? I just, I can't tell you how big the grin on my face gets, at the events, the last event in particular that we had, but both of the last two events that we've had at the airport have been wonderful. We have been blessed with fabulous weather. We've had a wonderful turnout of the public, of cars, aircraft, people, fire departments. It's just, it all has coalesced very well. And I've got to thank you, Adam, and your staff. And I've got to say too, that the airport committee is one of the hardest working dedicated committees that I've worked with for quite some time. And they've been able to bring in volunteers, get them to go through all the processes that are required. We've really had a fabulous list of volunteers show up to help, and they take their job seriously and, making it a safe and enjoyable event. I really hope that we have, touch wood, is this wood? The same level of luck for our September event for Fall Colors, because, we're planning, we'll start fairly shortly on that event, and we hope to make it bigger and better. And I really look forward to that. So thank you all involved, particularly yourself. And I don't know if Councillor Richards wants to add to that.
I think you did it pretty good. We had a great turnout. It was better than expected.
Mhm.
And I'm also looking forward to the fall event.
And one of the things that I really enjoyed, people bring their kids. It's becoming, the committee has really put an emphasis on trying to make it more community oriented, to make the airport more accessible to the community. And it's just really wonderful to see the people that bring their kids, little kids, that we're trying to do things that are for kids. And even dogs, like how many dogs do we have show up, and they're all really well behaved, which is nice to see, going back to the previous discussion we had earlier today. So could I have a mover and a seconder to receive the July 4th minutes? Councillor Shortreed and Barry.
Moved by Councillor Shortreed, second by Councillor Berry, be it resolved, council receives the July 4th, 2024 Airport Committee meeting minutes for information.
All in favor? That's carried. Next is the Green Burial Ad Hoc Advisory Committee update. That's a mouthful.
It was a great meeting. A lot of the meeting was in discussion about the bylaw that's coming forward, actually in this agenda. The committee, through the clerk's recommendation, it was recommended that the committee go through the bylaw, make their comments, and that they would come back to council versus the other way around. So you will see today there's recommendations in regards to the bylaw and specifically the green section. There's a lot of discussion over the shroud and how the body is contained. And I think through much discussion, I think the committee understands the requirements that are being asked, and they are in support of the amendments that are coming forward in the draft. The gazebo project is underway this week, I believe. And that's exciting. There was just some talks about, because it's happening with Fleming at a township spot, and there's other burials that could be taking place. There was just some logistics that had to work out there. And then I've been in touch with Angie in regards to some of the project management, and everything's going quite well.
Excellent. I'm assuming because it's under the bylaw section, that you've all looked at the draft cemetery bylaw and have no concerns with what's being recommended. There's been a lot of discussion and review on this, and I think that there's really been an excellent job done by all concerned. And I know there's been a lot of work done by staff on it. Thank you. Deputy Mayor Dayu, and then Councillor Barry.
So on the bylaw, as you say, a lot of conversation, some very thorough logic that has gone into what is drafted currently, which the committee has taken on board and understands that it's not feasible right now to have a full service green burial assortment of options, because our community, the service providers, staff safety and health, et cetera, we're just not in a position to be able to offer that quite yet. So the recommendation in the minutes is that council take on board the what's in the draft bylaw, but then we are able to go back to those limitations that are currently suggested for for green burials, and as circumstances permit, that we look for ways of reducing them. So right now there's a recommended requirement for, as Councillor Barry was saying, a lidded containment system. Not all green burial cemeteries offer that across the province. The green burial society would like to see that removed, that requirement removed, if and when that become possible, feasible for us here in Algonquin Highlands. So that would be the primary request brought forward. And there was a conversation that I'm sure the clerk's office could speak to further, that somehow that be done or worded in such a way that it is at the policy level and not at the bylaw level, so that we don't have to go back to the BAO every time we feel it's time that we're able to lift one of those restrictions. I don't know how that
I'm seeing a,
Okay, all right.
it's the bylaw.
Okay.
Councillor Barry.
Sorry, the one thing I forgot to mention, and I think I did mention it maybe at our last meeting, that the Green Burial Committee would like to hear more from the master gardeners, and they're requesting that we go up to the site, look at the options for naturalization and just a greater understanding, and then that information will come forward to council from the master gardeners in the fall.
For consideration.
As the committee, I think myself and Jen don't feel comfortable bringing that to council. We would rather have the presentation come to council from the master gardeners.
Oh, okay. Like, we don't have anything budgeted for any kind of landscaping or like, is there a cost associated with the master gardeners doing that?
I'm not sure about the initial site visit. It would be
And present, I mean, if they're going to be making recommendations in a presentation, Like, we need to know if there's a cost, because we haven't budgeted for
Mhm.
that, and that's not something that we've committed to at this point in time. It's been discussed. Did you have a comment, Adam?
So when we met with them to talk about that, the plan was, yes, to meet on site just to have an overview, but it was definitely directed that it would just be brought forward for information, for discussion, nothing more than that at the time, just because there was no budget set aside for it. So it was also asked that there was, I think, 2 or 3 options being brought forward. Just so the council would have the opportunity to take a look at, you know, the bare minimum, then the next level, and then the high level. So that's about it. I think all I would have to add.
Okay. I mean, I don't want to disappoint people. I also don't want people to have great expectations that we're gonna do something that's not within our capabilities or financial capabilities really, or willingness to do. Go ahead.
But it also does make sense in the gardening and growing cycle that by the time this presentation comes back, you know,
Wouldn't happen till next year
it's not
anyway.
going to happen till next year. So it might as well be integrated into our projects and priorities and budget for next year.
Okay, and there is a clause in the bylaw itself that addresses no gardens or no planting. Is that associated with specific spots? Okay. Okay, go ahead.
So just finally, there was a recommendation made about a media call out for the gazebo project to get folks in the know about what's going on with you know, with that exciting piece of work. I don't know what the conversation has been since then, but our communications coordinator was going to, I think Lisa was going to touch base with the communications coordinator about that. We were going to raise it at this meeting.
Media call out, what does that mean?
Like a little presentation when the gazebo is ready to bring
Oh.
media on board and answer some questions there. And I don't know if there was going to be a request to invite council to attend. Any
Okay, well, we'll follow up on that.
Mm.
I mean, in the meantime, we can, you know, Lisa can talk to Chad and see how we're gonna move forward with that. Okay, could I have a mover and a seconder to receive the committee update? Councillor Shortreed and Richards.
Moved by Councillor Shortreed, second by Councillor Richards. Be it resolved, council receives the June 17th, 2024 Green Burial Ad Hoc Advisory Committee meeting minutes for information.
All in favor? That's carried. Next is your monthly update.
Thank you, through Mayor. Basically, this is very similar to Parks, Rec and Trails. This is our busy time of the year. We are currently working on our biggest projects right now are our surface treatment projects. So prepping the roads for our surface treatment. And we're currently working on that on the McPhail Road. So they just finished up today, or sorry, this week, they finished up the subgrade removal. So they tore out all the subgrade of portions of the road and then they put back in a more suitable subgrade material. It's been compacted and then they'll be just spreading gravel over it over the next couple of days and then waiting for our surface treatment contractor to be coming in. Now that they're finished on McPhail, they'll be moving on to 2 other roads and getting them prepped and ready for our contractor to come in. So that's been going really well.
And they are
I'm sorry?
the 2 other roads?
The 2 other roads are Shangri-La and Elmar. So they're getting repaired.
It's unfortunate that every time you do some work on McPhail, it seems to rain immediately afterwards, which kind of, you know, takes away from the impact, but it's a lot better than it was.
Certainly, and once we get it all cleaned up and put the gravel to it, and then Miller's is our contractor, they'll come in and do a surface treatment on it. It'll certainly look a lot nicer. Part of the surface treatment does go into the McPhail landfill up to the scale house to help clean that up, as there's been some issues with the entrance to the landfill. On top of that, we did do our calcium application, which went really well this year. The weather really worked out for us to allow us to get it done in a timely manner. Unfortunately, the following weeks after the application, the the weather we had was not kind, with the amount of rain that we had. So it has diluted the treatment that we put on. So we will be looking at possibly doing a second treatment on our higher traffic gravel roads towards the end of this month, or sorry, towards the end of August. Other than that, it's we're continuing our brushing. We've been working on the airport, getting the airport ready and set up for the fly-in, which as we just discussed was a great success again. We've been working at the DRC, helping getting it ready, and also been working in the Dorset area. Our maintenance staff have done a tremendously good job with cleaning up the buildings up there, the exterior. Thanks to our CAO who was up there and helped with some guidance on some items that needed to be addressed. That was great.
Looking really good.
Yeah, the painting of the doors on both the fire hall and the public works garage, and some shingling that was done. You know, a lot of pride has been taken into that location, and I really hope that the public has noticed that, because it's been great work the staff has been doing up there. So onwards and upwards. So it's been really good. This month has been quite busy.
One question I have that I'm not sure if would be for yourself or for the fire chief is I see there's a lot of material being hauled into the training area off McPhail Road. I just kind of wonder what the plan or the sort of the schedule is for.
Yes, so I can answer that. So we're referring to that as the fire pit right now. But essentially it was our staging area for gravel. So we had an allotted gravel to purchase from last year and material that we weren't able to get on the road. So we made all the purchases of the material and stockpiled it there. So once the McPhail Road, all the gravel's been spread on McPhail Road, the remaining gravel that's in the fire pit will be spread out. And then we'll start transitioning with the fire department to move the training center into that location.
Okay, so the gravel that's being stockpiled there is kind of dual purposes.
Yep.
I look forward to seeing that moving forward. Any questions then on the activity report? Could I have a mover and a seconder to receive it? Councillor Barry, Councillor Shortreed.
Moved by Councillor Barry, second by Councillor Shortreed, be it resolved, council receives Public Works Report PW 1824 regarding monthly activities for the month of June for information.
All in favor? That's carried. Next is the OLF survey work that you had done at the airport.
Yes, thank you, through you, Mayor. So the OLS survey was completed, and as the report shows that it did show that there were a couple locations on the property that require some tree removal operations. So what I would like to propose to council is the two-step staging for this project to remove the trees that have been identified on the municipal property. So there's 26 hectares, 26.4 hectares of airport property that we'll need to look at removing the trees from. Most of it is to the approach and on both ends. So if you look on the GIS map, you can see across the river, there is quite a bit of trees in there that we would need to be removed. So that is what I'm proposing, that we look at putting together a proposal this year, sending that out for bid, and then we'll know what the pricing will be for 2025 and 2026 potentially, depending on costing. Honestly, I don't know what that would be right now. Prior to COVID, I would have, but now I'm not too sure. So I'd like to look at a two-stage process, but if costing comes back and it's feasible, maybe we'll just do it in one project. It will just depend on costing at that time, but I would bring that back to council for further discussion and then back again in projects and priorities.
Questions or comments? Deputy Mayor Dayu?
I just realized I don't have a map attached to, yeah, okay. What is the setback from any body of water then for tree removal?
Sorry, so to start, yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know why I didn't get attached, but nonetheless, I can send it to everybody. The setback for the river that is right in there, for us, the municipality, there wouldn't be a setback. So the municipality, the way it works for the shore road or the shore. road
Shoreline
allowance.
preservation?
Yes, thank you. When it comes to things like safety, for the municipality, it doesn't apply. Now, having said that, I would like to have the county come up and take a look at our option for cutting in through there to see if there's anything that we would need to look at, prior to a company coming in and cutting. And that would also be identified in our bid process. But I think that answers the question.
There's some pretty specific safety requirements with respect to approaches on runways and the heights of trees. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't doubt that at all. My question was more, thinking about the shoreline and whether it is within that 30 or 20 meter setback. If it is, what remedial activity we might include just to, to protect from any runoff, undue erosion, that sort of thing.
Thank you. Through your mayor, again, that would be addressed when we do our proposal. If you're familiar with the area, I mean, I could show you at any time if you wanted to take a look, is just at the end of the runway, when you look at the bank, we've cleared it before. Township staff actually have gone in there and cleared it. So there's a lot of undergrowth. I'm not sure the type of material. I'm sorry, I don't know that, but it's a lot of brush that wouldn't be cleared. It's the trees that would be taken down.
Any other questions or comments? Could I then have a mover and a seconder to receive the report? Councilors Barry and Richards.
By Council Barry, second by Council Richards, be it resolved, council receives Public Works Report PW 1924 regarding OLSA survey results conducted at the Stanhope Airport for information. And the council directs staff to develop a request for proposal for tree clearing on the airport property and for the project be conducted over a 2-year period.
All in favor? That's carried. Next is the Public Works Garage proposal. Might
Again.
things change in a couple of years.
Again, thank you through your mayor. Yes, I mean, we've talked about it in long discussion with COVID pricing and things of that nature, but here we are. It was quite the process to put all this together. I'm really thankful for council's approval to allow us to work alongside with Tulloch on this. And as you can see in the report, we did receive 3 bids on the project. The 3 prices are in front of you, as you can see, and through the bid process and through the process with Tulloch, we are recommending that we go with Darlin for the garage project.
Questions or comments? Hearing none, could I have a mover and a seconder then to receive the report and move forward with a recommendation to work with Darlin Limited? Councilors Richards and Barry.
Moved by Council Richards, second by Council Barry, be it resolved, council receives Public Works Report PW 2024 regarding a new Public Works Garage proposal results for information, and council awards a project to Darlin Limited in the amount of $3,737,000 plus applicable tax, and further council hereby authorize the mayor and CAO to sign the required documents and agreements.
All in favor? That's carried. Music to Mr. Thorne's ears. Okay, next is the roof replacement at the Dorset Museum.
Thank you. Again, through your mayor, this was we did get some help from the county's procurement coordinator on this. Again, it was a great project to work alongside with the county on. And as you can see, we did receive 2 bids through a very similar process of examining. Staff are recommending that we go with Blanchfield Roofing Company Limited. They did fulfill all the requirements of the proposal, and they were the lowest bid.
Just for clarification, when it talks about funding from the Dorset Museum Reserve, that's our reserve, not the special projects reserve that is in place for the museum group to do their own projects. Correct. Okay. Any other questions about this project? Councilor Barry.
Sorry, did I miss, is there a timeline for when this would be completed by?
Through your mayor, I'm sorry, I don't have that with me, but it's my understanding that this would be started, I believe, next month. So it shouldn't take very long. They did give a schedule, And I've looked at too many projects in the last little while. I just can't remember how long this one was scheduled for, but it shouldn't take very long, no more than a couple weeks.
Councillor Berry?
This is on the same area, same location, but a different area. The committee is no longer meeting for the summer. Is there an update on the wall in the addition? There's like some leaking, if that will be addressed during the roof replacement or if it has already been addressed? I just feel like we haven't met again, so I don't know what the
Yep.
status is.
Yeah, of course, through you, Mayor. Yeah, so it was addressed when it happened. It was investigated and it was addressed at the time. A minor fix was put in place, knowing that the roof was going to be replaced. It will address all of the roof issues that we were having. And once the roof is replaced, then staff will be going in and addressing the minor damage that was done to the paint. Yep.
Okay, excellent. Any other questions? Could I have then a mover and a seconder to receive the report and approve the recommendation? Councillor Berry, short read.
Moved by Councillor Gray, second by Councillor Shortreed. Be it resolved, Council receives Public Works Report PW 2224 regarding Dorset Museum flat roof replacement proposal results for information. And Council awards the project to Blanchfield Roofing Company Limited in the amount of $142,025 plus applicable tax to be funded from the Dorset Museum Reserve. And further, Council hereby authorizes the CAO to sign any required documents and agreements.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mayor and Council.
Next up is Fire Services. Good morning, Chief.
Morning, Mayor and Council.
So you have your monthly activity report?
Yes, through you, your worship. I'd like to just highlight a couple items. The first one is there's now a defib unit located at the gift shop at the Dorset Tower. So it will be monitored by us or inspected regularly by facilities, but it is under the county defib program. So they'll take care of all repairs and maintenance going forward. It'll be a seasonal one. Once the fall comes and the Dorset Tower shuts down, they'll remove it and put it at another location till we open back up where it can be used. So I think that's a real step forward because we do have a lot of people that go in that park area. So, and with them going up and down the tower.
So that's through the county's EMS department?
Correct. For public education, our association's been very, very involved lately, in which they always are, but they have all three stations partaken in events recently. Station 60 was involved in the arts and crafts. They did a public education event there. Station 70 partook in the Canada Day festivities, and Station 80 was at the fly-in. They will be partaking next week at the opening of the rec center, and they'll be featuring the new pumper that'll be on display, along with the public education tent and the trailer in that during that event. Again, emphasizing all the stuff that Dorset has to offer. And it's, as said by Adam, the upgrades to the fire hall, the look of it's unbelievable with the doors all painted, and that really looks good. So pleased with that part of it. The other thing I'd like to highlight is a couple of the calls that we responded to in the last month. One was a backwoods rescue on McGovern Lake, and that involved Station 60 and 70. And a person dumped a canoe on McGovern Lake, and there's no access to it. And it's actually a police responsibility to rescue them, and they weren't in the position to do it. And we did respond to our department, and through the Zodiac that was supported by council that's in Station 70, they were able to take it and go up through a small creek and get two people who didn't have a canoe any longer, 2 adults and a child, and bring them back to safety into the EMS. If that hadn't been in place, the OPP already had Trenton on standby waiting to respond. So again, we were able to do that, and that was one of our water trail sites. So that was nice to see. We had a fire call in Dorset, which as a follow-up, I did send an email out to council about it, but it was a 30-mile or sorry, a 30-kilometer response by the Dorset Department along with the other two stations. And they did an amazing job. I was so impressed with what I saw there. We saved probably $500,000 worth of building from there. And I think what impressed me the most is the three girls. Each department has at least one female firefighter. We encourage as many as we can get, but the three, one from each department, were together, and they had smiles on their faces when they were done because they realized the accomplishments they had achieved. And ironically, one of the first firefighters in was a veteran firefighter from Station 70, and he came back and he knew what he did, and he was smiles from ear to ear, and that's really nice to see.
It might, just as a point, it might be more appropriate to refer to them as the female officers or women. They're not girls.
Right, yes.
I wonder, I know I've asked several times about recruitment, and I'm just wondering what you do as far as when you're promoting or advertising for recruits. Is it always on Facebook, or what other processes you use? I guess my thoughts were, I was kind of wondering if when you meet with the other fire chiefs across the county, whether we would consider, actually putting an ad in the paper that does kind of county-wide promoting joining fire departments.
Through your worship, we do promote it through all of our social media. We're looking at Fire Prevention Week, having an open house, and to encourage people, especially from Station 80, to come, and we'll have an information evening for them. I definitely can talk with the other departments to see if we can do something jointly, because this isn't a localized event for Algonquin Highlands. This is across the province. We just aren't getting the volunteers. And it is within our department itself. We've really increased numbers at both stations 60 and 70, but 80 has been a struggle just for the demographics, but we will continue to take every avenue we can. The one thing at that Dorset fire, we had 18 firefighters there for that call. So when you get the big call, or the sound like the bigger calls, we do get better turnout than the medical calls and that.
Any questions or comments for the chief? Some good news. Thank you.
Thank you.
Could I have a mover and a seconder to receive the monthly report? Deputy Mayor Dayu, Councillor Barry.
Deputy Mayor, moved by Deputy Mayor Dayu, second by Councillor Barry. Be it resolved, council receives Fire Service Report FD 1324 regarding monthly activities submitted by Michael French, dated July 18th, 2024. And finally, that council appoints Eric Mason, firefighter Station 60, Adam Thorne, Captain Station 80, and Trevor Vieira, acting Captain Station 60.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you.
Thank you. Enjoy your afternoon.
Next up is finance. Morning, ladies.
Good morning.
Versus the strategic asset management policy.
Yes,
I
thank you.
understand that that's your project.
It is, yes. So I'm here to present our updated strategic asset management policy. It's legislatively mandated under Ontario Regulation 588-17. And I just wanted to point out a couple of things for council today. So this policy is linked to many of the town's strategic documents, however, most notably through the strategic plan. Done through infrastructure needs. So by assuring Algonquin Highlands current and future assets are managed to be sustainable to meet our long-term needs, as well as through service excellence by optimizing service delivery and performance targets. And lastly, through community engagement, as the policy addresses for residents, constituents, and external stakeholders to provide input to the township when applicable. So some of the changes being brought forward for council's consideration include goals, additional goals, which are to achieve cost savings by identifying efficiencies and deficiencies, and take appropriate action where necessary to rehabilitate or renew the assets. Manage risks through implementation of appropriate condition assessment and performance evaluation. So performance evaluation strategies for all relevant assets, And finally, managing current and future life cycle activities in a fiscally responsible manner. And with that, I welcome any questions council may have.
Questions or comments from council? Councilor Berry.
No questions, just comment. I thought it was a really well-written report. Yeah, I had my pen ready, but I didn't have anything written down.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Good job.
Thank you very
you.
much.
I could have a mover and a seconder to receive the report and adopt the policy. Deputy Mayor Dayu, Councilor Berry.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Dayu, seconded by Council Berry. Be it resolved, the council receives report TT 2224 regarding strategic asset management policy for information, and that council approves the updates and directs that a bylaw be brought forward to its August meeting to adopt the updated policy.
All in favor? That's carried. And my understanding is the item B is simply under the bylaw section of the agenda. Well, thank you. Okay, administrative business, the routine disclosure policy.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Staff's bringing this policy forward. It establishes procedures for the release of documents to the public. It's not a required, but it's highly recommended that we do have one. Transparency provides access to members of the public to see what they have access to and how they can go about receiving access to municipal documents. And the other part of it is to also help staff when they receive inquiries as to what they can release and how it needs to be released. So it's there for information. Staff is planning on putting it on the website and updating disclosure information and access to township records as well for the public.
Questions or comments? Councilor Berry.
I was happy to see this has come forward to us a few weeks ago, correct? Or maybe a couple council as a draft, maybe? Anyway, I appreciate the table in this document. So I must say, I was reading through it and kind of getting a little bit confused of where things could go and couldn't go and who and how they would be disseminated. And then when I saw the table and I was like, okay, I feel that's clear. And I just want to say I appreciate the table.
Any other comments or questions? Then could I have a mover and a seconder to receive the report and approve the policy? Deputy Mayor Dayu, Councilor Richards.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Dayu, second by Councilor Richard. Be it resolved that council receives clerk's report CO 1624, routine disclosure policy for information, and council directs a bylaw be brought back to its August meeting to adopt the said policy.
All in favor? That's carried. Next is a report from the clerk on her attendance at the Association of Municipal Managers, Clerks and Treasurers.
Yes, I want to thank council for the opportunity to attend the conference, as well as you'll note in the report that the deputy clerk also attended her first conference. The sessions that I attended are listed. The first session was regarding the strong mayor powers, code of conduct, sanctions, and clerk's authority and other issues. Partnership addressing staff recruitment. That was an interesting one that was presented by a clerk in one of the municipalities, I believe in Hastings County, I want to say Tweed, about how they created partnerships with their local municipalities for recruitment because everyone struggles with recruitment. And so they have a partnership for CBO services and fire services. And it was interesting. They created boards in order, and it helps with, more qualified applicants, and you only need one CBO as opposed to 4 or 5 or however many. Yeah, and it was great. We had a lot of networking opportunities with the vendors that were there. Spoke to Elections Ontario. Obviously, they're taking over the voters list for the next election. So that was, we attended a breakfast session with them as well. And they gave us some tips and some important things to get out to the public. And yeah, it was really great. It was, I think, one of the biggest one, if not the biggest one. There were over 700 attendees at this one.
Wow. I find it interesting that, I'm sorry, did you have a comment?
I just wanted to point out to council, and Dawn didn't include it in her report, but she was part of the AMCTO committee that made the conference such a success. So I just wanted council to know that.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you. It's probably
out to
one of the-
you.
Yeah, shout out to all the members on the committee.
I find it interesting that there is a move towards sharing between municipalities of recruitment for different roles. And that it seems to be having success where you would think that that would create problems or more competition. Or, you know, that one would, because you're doing it together, that one community might lose out in a circumstance that we heard the same at the county level where the professional or the physician recruiters are doing the same thing and with a fair bit of success. So that's interesting. The question that I asked Dawn off, outside of council, and I will ask it again, so you can all hear her comments. I was curious to hear about the presentation that was made on the strong mayor's powers and how that was being received, or how different municipalities were working through that, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah, there was two sessions I went to, they kind of overlap. One also spoke about the strong mayor powers. But one of the points that was made that most of the mayors that have the strong mayor powers delegated that authority back to their council to make those decisions that the mayor could make. And they can make decisions on to advance provincial legislation. They can bring forward bylaws, they can prepare budgets, they can remove staff, senior staff, CAOs, any senior official. So there was a lot to it, but the important part about the strong mayors as well is they still have to follow the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, and any powers delegated would have to be in writing. So, but yeah, it didn't, that was the main takeaway, is that a lot of them have delegated it back to their council to make the decisions as before.
That's heartening. I found that heartening to hear that, because I mean, to me, it's just so much, you're just losing the democratic process by allowing the mayor to make those kinds of decisions. They're big decisions. Well, thank you for your report. Can I have a mover and a seconder to receive it? Councillor Short-Reed and Richards.
Moved by Councillor Short-Reed, second by Councillor Richards. Be it resolved that council receives clerk's report CO 1724 in accordance with the township's conference policy regarding staff attendance at the 2024 AMCTO conference for information.
All in favor? And next up is our deputy clerk's report to attendance at the same conference. Good morning, Ms. Hudson.
Hi, good morning. Good morning, Mayor and Council, and thank you. So yes, my first report here is, yes, I participated in the AMCTO conference with the clerk, and so I just want to express my gratitude to council for allowing me to attend. It was a great opportunity. Because I got to join with the clerk, I feel we took opposite sessions and we gathered so much information. So I have listed the workshops that I attended. A lot of them that I attended were around digitization, elections. Even little municipalities can do big things. That session was on, I think it was the Township of Springwater, I believe. So they did a digital transformation strategy. They did it themselves. And as council is aware, we are working with the Perry Group joint as a county initiative. So more to come on that, but it was good to see the trend of digital is climbing, the need is climbing, and we're kind of on the up curve with where it's going. I would say we're very on par. There were some that have dedicated departments, some that don't have a strategy at all. So that was really good experience to know, because we were still developing the strategy when I attended. I think we had kind of
worked through the final kinks and now they're coming. It's been presented to county council, but it will be coming to the lower tiers in the next few council meetings. So that was a really good opportunity. I did quite a few sessions on elections. And one of my favorite sessions is anytime Rick O'Connor speaks. So that was the midterm in the Universe, Now What? So he's a great speaker. So got to gather a lot of information always from him. And the last session I did was on records management. So it was a unique project that they developed. As the council's aware, we're also right in the middle, I will say officially, through our records management onboarding as of yesterday. And so they had a different approach to it, which was also very successful, but I was really happy to hear there are other municipalities that are just starting the process, some that have already finished the entire process. So it's good to see that we're right on that curve as well. So yeah, so if the council has any questions, but I do want to express my gratitude. Thank you.
Questions for Sarah? I just want to say, it's really nice to get these reports, to see how, attendance at some of these sessions help in each individual's professional development. And when that happens, it just puts us that much more ahead of the curve. And it puts us all in a better position. So just wanted to acknowledge that. Could I have a mover and a seconder then to receive the report? Deputy Mayor Dayu, Councillor Barry.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Dayu, second by Councillor Barry. Be it resolved that council receives Deputy Clerk's report DC 124 in accordance with the Township's conference policy regarding staff attendance at the 2024 AMCTO conference for information.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Next are the proposed cemetery bylaw amendments.
Yeah, so thank you, Mayor Danielson. So we are in the process of getting ready to submit everything to the BAO for the development of the Green Burial section at St. Stephen's. So in May, I sat with the Green Burial ad hoc committee, and we went through the bylaw together, and I recorded any suggestions that they had, contributions and comments into the revision of the bylaw. After that, I did a lot of consulting with I first started with the BAO, and they made some really great recommendations on who to consult next. So I did conversations with some funeral directors, other municipalities that have these sections functioning. And so the staff have made the changes, and we in June went back to the Green Burial the Green Burial Ad Hoc Committee to review the changes. And so I have attached them, our adopted bylaw 2268. And then I have also attached the color coded version that when I met with the committee that we went through. So all of the highlighted areas were suggestions that the committee made, but also housekeeping items that staff feel that we're ready to recommend. So green highlights recommendations from the committee that we support, absolutely. The yellow sections are ones that some of the housekeeping items. So for example, under section 5 and 5.3, we've added revisions for pillow markers. They've become quite common, definitely since I've been involved with cemetery. Some don't want the expense of a big monument, but want something a little bit more than a flat marker. So they're becoming quite popular. So that revision would allow those. We have had actually a few requests, and we did make the housekeeping amendment to 5.5. A lot of people are wanting a little bit more of a natural look to monuments. So we've added the word polished or unpolished. Polished is what generally is like the finishing touch on a monument, gives it that glazed look. We've had a few people that would like to not have it glazed and just would like a more natural look to the stone. So we've done that. And then most of the other changes were in relation to the winter burial and also to the natural green burial section. So a meeting with the green burial committee, like as the council members indicated, they were supportive of most of the changes after conversations. So one of the things that the BAO had suggested is to ensure that what we're putting into the bylaw is what we can ensure that can happen, because and I actually admittedly had not thought of it this way, because what we don't want to put into a bylaw is something that we can't happen. So if somebody purchased a plot or purchased a space in the green burial and our provisions allow it to be a certain way, but we can't get it to accommodate a process to be done that way, they were just very cautious of ensuring what we put into our bylaw, we can make it happen. So after all of our research and conversations we've had, we have made our suggestions. And then what staff agreed to the committee is that we would undertake, similar to as we did with the pillow marker, that if things can change, as in restrictions can be lifted to 8.4, staff would conduct internal checks yearly to see if those changes can happen. And then just to address your question, comment before Councillor Dayu about making those changes, we would have to do it at a bylaw level, but we would ensure that it's done when we can, so it's not constant revisions. We'll make sure we get to where we want to be, and then we will start with the process with the BAO, as it is lengthy. Yeah, so I think that summarizes everything, but if council has any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Questions or comments for Sarah? Hearing none, I'm assuming that the bylaw itself will be under the bylaw section. Yes, or are we? Go ahead.
We'll just submit it with council's approval to submit now, and then once the BA reviews, it'll come back and receive.
For
final
official approval, okay.
Yeah.
So could I then have a mover and a seconder to receive the report and submit the draft document to the BAO? Councilors Richards and Barry.
Moved by Councillor Richards, seconded by Councillor Barry. Be it resolved, council receives report DC 224 regarding proposed cemetery bylaw amendments for information, and that council concurs with the recommended revisions and directs the bylaw be brought forward for approval after the registrar has approved the changes, and that the council directs staff to submit the bylaw to the Bereavement Authority of Ontario for approval in accordance with the requirements of the Funeral, Burial, and Cremation Services Act.
All in favor? That's carried.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. The next item is a request from the County of Haliburton for appointment to the Short-Term Rentals Appeal Committee. Just as a little bit of background. It was felt because the individual municipalities would be the ones that were managing the short-term rental process, that to have a little bit of division, that the county would then be the ones that would establish the appeals committee. Then one particular member of council felt that they already had enough committee meetings and maybe we should reach out to the municipalities and have a member of each municipal council appointed, which is contrary to it being a member of county council. But you know, that's the direction that council agreed to go. So the request is for an appointment to that committee. And I have no idea how busy or lack thereof this committee or appeals committee will be. Now, unless someone else has a burning desire to be on this committee, I have asked Councillor Richards if she would represent us in that regard, and she has tentatively agreed. So if there's no concerns associated with that, could I then maybe have a mover and a seconder to recommend Councillor Richards as our representative, Councillor Barry and Councillor Shortreed. I just might add that I'm in under other circumstances. If I wasn't the warden, I'm, you know, we might have a discussion about myself as opposed to Councillor Richards, but I'm automatically as the warden for now a member of the committee.
Moved by Councillor Barry, seconded by Counselor Short, read be it resolved that council appoints Counselor Richards to the Short-Term Rental Appeals Committee.
All in favor? That's carried. And we will now break for, let's say until 1:45, for lunch. The next item on the agenda is planning. The first item being the Committee of Adjustment minutes from June 28th.
Nothing to highlight from me, but happy to answer any questions, should council have any.
Any comments or questions about those minutes? Could I then have a mover and a seconder to receive them? Counselor Berry, Counselor Shortreed,
Moved by Counselor Berry, second by Counselor Short, read be it resolved that June 28th, 2024 Committee of Adjustment meeting minutes be received for information.
all in favor? That's carried. The next item is a proposed severance.
Thank you. Yes, this is a property on the 25th line. The applicant is proposing to create 3 new rural lots with 1 retained. All the lots will meet or exceed the minimum frontage and area requirements. So staff are recommending approval of the proposal.
Any comments or questions for Sean? Would I then have a mover and a seconder to receive the report and recommending approval? Councilors Berry, Deputy Mayor Dayu.
Moved by Counselor Berry, seconded by Deputy Mayor Dayu. Be it resolved, council receives planning report PL 5924 regarding proposed severance of lands located on part of lot 25, concession 1, geographic township of Stanhope. Submitted by Bishop Geyer Surveying, Inc. on behalf of 1587355 Ontario, Inc. And further, that council supports in principle the proposed severance subject to the following conditions: 1, payment of taxes, including penalty and interest; 2, a copy of the draft reference plan be submitted to the planner of the Township of Algonquin Highlands for review and comment prior to the registration of the plan; 3, settlement of 5% parkland dedication or cash in lieu in the amount of $500 for each of the separate parcels shall be paid to the Township of Algonquin Highlands pursuant to Section 51(1) of the Planning Act.
In favor? That's carried. Oh, sorry. Item 10F that was on the original consent agenda. I believe that there was a question associated with that item coming from yourself.
Thank you very much. So as council knows, we've seen this short allowance application come a few times as it followed the regular steps. And the concern that has been raised from the public on each of those occasions is regards to the snowmobile access in the wintertime and whether the closing of the short allowance would stop snowmobilers from using that section. And I just wondered if you had a final comment on that we could put on public record.
Yes, so the trail was shown on a previous a copy of the survey. Unfortunately, it's not attached to this report. However, it does cross primarily over private property and not the short road allowance. So by council closing the short road allowance, it's not restricting access more than if we left it the way it is as a township short road allowance. The property owner would still have the right to block that access should they wish to.
Does that satisfy your question?
Yep, it does very much. I just wanted that to be understood generally. Thank you.
Okay, could I then have are there any other questions or comments about that? Could I then have a mover and a seconder to receive that report and recommend approval? Councilors Berry and Deputy Mayor Dayu.
Moved by Counselor Berry, seconded by Deputy Mayor Dayu. Be it resolved, council acknowledge receipt of report PL 5824 regarding proposed shore road allowance closing fronting property located at part of lot 25, concession 2, geographic township of McClintock, Quagama Lake, and that council deems the said shore road allowance to be surplus and concurs with the recommendation made in said report and directs the bylaw to stop up, close, and convey the said shore road allowance be brought forward for further consideration.
All in favor? That's carried. I just thought you were so keen to stay here with us that you forgot about that item.
Highlight of my day. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thanks, John. External boards. First is the Dorset Community Partnership. Any updates there?
Not in the summer for both of them.
Okay. Anything on the Upper Trent Water Management Partnership?
There hasn't been any further meeting of the Upper Trent Water Management. And the Muskoka watershed, I wasn't able to go to the last meeting. There's a meeting today, and the next one won't be until September.
Okay, thank you. There's really nothing to report on the OPP Detachment Board. The board has not yet met. It was my understanding that because there were some insurance issues for the board, that needed to be sorted out before we were able to meet, and that they were hoping that we would meet late in July. But that will not stop me from contacting the OPP about the concerns that we raised today. And I'll keep you posted when we have our first detachment board meeting. Primarily, that meeting will be setting terms of reference, setting committee structures, talking about the committee work, and look forward to doing that, I'm sure. Deputy Mayor Dayu's looking forward to that as well. Any news to impart from the library board?
No, I know there will be a presence on next weekend for the opening of the Dorset Rec Center, but the furniture won't be in place by that time.
Oh, it's too bad, but at least people will be able to see the space and see where their access is and, meet the staff and. Okay, thank you. Anything on community safety and well-being?
No, I've got nothing further to impart on that or the next few, or the Muskoka River watershed or the Community Climate Action Plan.
It's just a busy group. And, quite honestly, I can't say that there's anything substantial to impart with respect to a county council. We are meeting next week, and so we'll have more news to bring to the next council meeting. Okay, under general business, there was correspondence. Looking for support for physician recruiting and somehow seeking support for dealing with the physician shortage in Ontario. Just, I guess, is there any comments that you wanted to make about that, or otherwise, whether council wants to support that request or not,
Yeah, I just.
or just receive it for information?
Yeah, it's up to council. I have drafted the motion that AMO and the Medical Association has attached as an appendix at the bottom of their letter, so that motion is drafted, should council wish to proceed with supporting it.
Okay, what is council's wish with respect to that? Councilor Berry?
I'm in support of the request. I think the more pressure, the better. I think joining EMO's pursuit, I don't think they'd be asking for our input if they didn't feel they needed it, so.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Dayu?
I don't mind supporting it, but honestly, I'm not sure I understand the value of it. It's not that the province doesn't understand that there's a crisis in terms of physician recruitment. So I don't know really what this adds, but I'm fine with.
I'm sure they understand. It's whether they're prepared to do something about it or if there is anything they can do about it, but take action. So is that a sort of a second to supporting it, or?
Sure, I'll second it.
Okay. Go ahead.
I do think the resolution is a little weak. I'm not gonna lie. Like, it's basically saying that to recognize the physician shortage is there. and to fund care appropriately, like appropriately is pretty weak word. I don't know if we can come up with our own or if we follow theirs, but I support the pressure in principle. The language seems a little weak.
Okay, unless you've got an alternate suggestion with respect to language, I think we'll go forward with it as it is.
The clerk has her hand up.
Oh, I was just going to suggest if council didn't like the word appropriately, it could be taken out and
Oh, we could do that.
if, but that's completely up to council unless they have a different word they want to use.
But they're not gonna look after it inappropriately. though.
Urgently? I don't know.
It's at this point,
2 in the morning.
semantics. Want to read the resolution?
Moved by Council Barry, second by Deputy Mayor Dayu. Whereas the state of healthcare in Ontario is in crisis with 2.3 million Ontarians lacking access to a family doctor, emergency room closures across the province, patients being derostered, and 40% of family doctors considering retirement over the next 5 years. And whereas it has become increasingly challenging to attract and retain an adequate healthcare force throughout the healthcare sector across Ontario. And whereas Ontario municipal governments play an integral role in the healthcare system through responsibilities in public health, long-term care, and paramedicine. And whereas the percentage of family physicians practicing comprehensive family medicine has declined from 77 in 2008 to 65% in 2022. And whereas per capita healthcare spending in Ontario is the lowest of all provinces in Canada, and whereas a robust workforce developed through a provincial sector-wide health human resource strategy would significantly improve access to health services across the province. Be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Algonquin Highlands urge the province of Ontario to recognize a physician Ontario to fund healthcare appropriately and ensure every Ontarian has access to physician care.
All in favor? Excuse me, that's carried. Okay, the next letter, I did ask it, it came to me individually, may have all received it separately. I asked that it be put on the agenda. So I guess I'm wondering if council wish to support OPSU's recommendation that we pass a resolution urging the province to properly fund childcare. Councilor Berry.
I support that, and they're also asking that we contact the Minister of Children Community Service specifically, so are you asking that we do that as well?
Well, a resolution would be sent to that.
Okay.
There. Any other comments? Could I have a mover and a seconder support that? Councillor, did you want to comment or move it? Okay, so that's moved by Councillor Berry, seconded by Councillor Shortreed.
Moved by Councillor Berry, second by Councillor Shortreed. Be it resolved, council receives correspondence from Ruby Taylor, OPSU Local 334 President, regarding the Kawartha Halliburton Children's Aid Society and concerns with the lack of funding being provided from the ministry and the challenges that the Children's Aid Society across the province are facing, and that council supports OPSU Local 334 and requests the province to provide necessary financial resources to protect children and youth in Ontario, and that a copy of this resolution be sent to the Honorable Michael Parsa, Minister of Children, Community and Social Services.
All in favor? That's carried. Is there any notice of motion? Hearing none. Was there any request to support other correspondence
No.
that we have? Could I then have a mover and a seconder to receive the correspondence listing? Councillor Shortreed and Richards.
Moved by Councillor Shortreed, seconded by Councillor Richards. Be it resolved, council receives the July 18th, 2024 correspondence listing for information.
All in favor? That's carried. So we will now move into the closed session portion of the meeting. So could I have a mover and a seconder to go into closed? Councillors Richards and Deputy Mayor Dayu.
Moved by Councillor Richards, second by Deputy Mayor Dayu. Be it resolved, council adjourned its open session at 1:05 PM in order to proceed into closed session for the purpose of discussing personnel matters about identifiable individuals. litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality, and advice subject to solicitor-client privilege in accordance with sections 239(2) B, E, and F of the Municipal Act 2001, SO 2001 as amended regarding legal.
All in favor? That's carried.
Moved by Counselor Richards, seconded by Counselor Berry. Be it resolved, the following bylaws be received and read a first time, considered read a second and third time, and finally passed with the corporate seal affixed. 2024 49 agreement with the pause at Clare Station for pound services. 2024-63 to adopt code of conduct for chief building official and inspectors. 2024-65 to authorize part of a shore road allowance closure in front of Lot 3, Concession 6, Geographic Township of Stanhope, Carter. 2024-66 to authorize part of a shore road allowance in front of Lot 6, Concession 14, Geographic Township of Sherburne, and part of original road allowance between Lot 6, Concession 14, Geographic Township of McClintock, Briggs. 2024-67 to authorize part of shore road allowance closure in front of Lot 25, Concession 2, Geographic Township of McClintock. 2024-68 to authorize part of shore road allowance closing between lots 15 and 16, Concession 8, Geographic Township of Stanhope. 2024-69 to authorize zoning bylaw amendment application AHZBA 624, and 2024-70 to authorize an agreement with the Association of Municipalities of Ontario gas tax.
All in favor? That's carried. Could I have a mover and a seconder then to adopt the confirming bylaw? Councilors Berry, Deputy Mayor Dayu.
By Counselor Berry, seconded by Deputy Mayor Dayu. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-71, being a bylaw to confirm proceedings of council held during its July 18th, 2024 meeting, be received and read a first time, considered read a second and third time, and finally passed with the corporate seal affixed.
All in favor? That's carried. And finally, a motion to adjourn. Deputy Mayor Dayu, Councilor Shortreed.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Dayu, seconded by Counselor Shortreed. Be it resolved that the regular meeting hereby adjourn at 1:20 PM.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you.